looking at the map with new eyes. So, we are truly alone.
We are, Ned said. It comes down to us.
The north, the Vale, the Riverlands, and the Stormlands.
Against the dragon.
He placed his hand over the trident on the map. The war ends here. Whoever wins at the trident decides which way the lions and the roses jump. If we lose, Tywin destroys the remaining army to curry favor with Aerys. If we win, he hands us the crown on a platter. Robert slammed his fist into his palm. Then we win.
At all costs.
At all costs, Ned echoed. He looked at Robert. Rhaegar thinks he is fulfilling a prophecy. He thinks he is the hero of a song. He's about to find out that life isn't a song. It's steel. Jon Arryn took a deep breath. I will call the lords. We need to organize the march. If Rhaegar is gathering at the Trident, we meet him there. We pick the ground. The Ruby Ford, Ned suggested. The river is shallow there. Good for infantry. Bad for Dornish horses.
Agreed, Hoster said.
The two older lords turned to leave. Jon Arryn paused at the tent flap, looking back at Ned with a quiet respect. You speak with your father's voice today, Ned, Jon said softly. The North is in good hands. It's the only voice I have, Jon, Ned replied calmly. I am a Stark. We do what needs to be done. Jon nodded, seemingly satisfied that the boy he fostered had simply grown into the man he was always meant to be. He ducked out of the tent. When they were gone, Robert slumped back onto his pillows, exhausted but grinning. You really think Tywin is that much of a bastard? Robert asked. I think he's worse, Ned said, pouring Robert a cup of water. But don't worry about him. Worry about Rhaegar. Oh, I'm not worried about Rhaegar, Robert whispered, his hand drifting to his hammer. I'm dreaming about him. Chapter 12, Battle of Trident. The Green Fork of the Trident. The river was swollen, a churning mass of grey-green water that separated the past from the future. On the north bank stood the rebel host. 40,000 men, a wall of shields and spears stretching as far as the eye could see. The Starks, the Arryns, the Tullus, and the Baratheons. On the south bank stood the Royalists. They were slightly more numerous, their armor cleaner, their banners brighter. The three-headed dragon of House Targaryen snapped in the wind, flanked by the son of Martell and the griffins, seahorses, and badgers of the Crownlands. Ned Stark sat on his black destrier in the vanguard of the left flank. The air smelled of wet grass and imminent violence. They're coming, the great Jon rumbled beside him, gripping the haft of a massive axe. Look at them. Preening like peacocks. Let them preen, Ned said, his voice calm. Peacocks can't swim in armor. In the center of the royalist line, a horn blew. It was a clear, high note that cut through the morning mist. The water exploded as thousands of horses plunged into the ford. The battle didn't start with a roar, it started with a splash. Then 1,000 splashes. Then a scream. The royalist vanguard hit the rebel shield wall in the middle of the stream. The impact was felt through the ground itself. Men went down, trampled into the mud. The river instantly turned a frothy pink. Hold! Ned shouted, his voice amplified by a subtle push of the force. Shields up! On the rebel left, the attack was led by the Dornish. Prince Lewin Martell brought 10,000 spears across the water. They moved differently than the Crownlands knights, faster, lighter. They didn't smash into the shield wall, they flowed around it, looking for gaps. They're flanking us! Lord Corbray shouted, his voice shrill with panic. A Dornish spear took Corbray in the shoulder, punching through his pauldron. The Lord of Heartsholm cried out and fell back, his line wavering. If the flank broke, the rebel army would be rolled up like a carpet. Ned saw the danger. He saw the morale breaking. But before Ned could move, a figure burst from the ranks of the Valaman. It was Lyn Corbray, the Lord's younger son. He snatched up his father's sword, Lady Forlorn, a blade of Valyrian steel as dark as smoke. Vale! Lyn screamed, his face twisted in a mask of fury. He charged the Dornish line alone. It was madness. It was glorious. Lady Forlorn cut through spear shafts like straw. Lyn fought with a desperate, suicidal bravery that rallied the men around him. He carved a path straight to Luin Martell. The Kingsguard prince, already wounded, couldn't match the ferocity of the younger man. Ned watched as Lyn drove the Valyrian steel through Martell's chest. The Dornish command crumbled. The flank holds, Ned breathed, turning his attention back to the center. The center was a meat grinder. Robert Baratheon was there, a giant in antlered armor, swinging his hammer with a rhythm that was terrifying to behold. Smash! Step! Smash! Step! But cutting a path toward him was a legend. Sir Barristan Selmy. Barristan the Bold. The Lord Commander of the Kingsguard moved through the rebel ranks like a scythe through wheat. He wasn't using a great sword or a hammer, he was using a simple longsword, but in his hands, it was a brush painting death. He cut down 2 of Robert's personal guard in the span of a heartbeat. He disarmed a Karstark captain and kicked him into the river to drown. He was unstoppable. Ned saw him. He saw the white cloak stained with mud and blood. He knew he should let the archers handle it. He knew he should send the great yawn. But in his head a warning flashed. The long night is coming. You need heroes. You need the best swords. Great yawn. Ned barked. Hold the line. I have the white cloak. He'll gut you, Stark, the great yawn roared, chopping a man in half. Watch me, Ned said. He spurred his horse into the chaotic waters of the center. He didn't charge blindly. He let the force guide him, weaving through the melee, deflecting stray arrows with casual flicks of his sword. He reached Selmy just as the old knight was about to finish off a Mullister squire. Clang! Ned's sword intercepted Barristan's blade. The impact jarred Ned's arm to the shoulder. Barristan turned, his blue eyes cold and focused behind his visor. Stark, he noted, not breathless, not tired. You're far from your frozen waste. And you're on the wrong side of history, Sir Barristan, Ned replied, circling his horse. I am on the side of my vows, Barristan said. He attacked. It was the fastest strike Ned had ever seen. No telegraph. No wind up. Just a blur of steel aiming for Ned's neck. Ned didn't block it, he couldn't. He ducked, the blade passing millimeters over his helm. He dropped from his saddle, splashing into the knee-deep water, and swept his leg out. It was a dirty move. A brawler's move. Barristan's horse shied, but the knight stayed mounted, bringing his sword down in a chop that would have split Ned in 2. Ned rolled. The water cushioned him. He came up dripping, mud on his face. Get down here, Ned challenged. Barristan dismounted with fluid grace. He stood in the river, water rushing around his greaves. As you wish. They fought. It wasn't like the fight with Connington. Connington was good, Barristan was perfect. Every feint Ned threw, Barristan saw. Every opening Ned left, Barristan exploited. Ned had to tap into the force constantly just to stay alive. He used force sense to predict the strikes, force speed to parry them, and force strength to match his power. To the soldiers watching, it was a blur. 2 masters dancing in the river. He's too good, Ned realized. I can't beat him with skill alone. I have to cheat. Barristan lunged, a classic thrust. Ned didn't parry. He stepped into the blade. He twisted his body so the sword slid between his arm and his ribs, slicing the leather of his jerkin but missing the flesh. He trapped Barristan's sword arm with his own left arm. Barristan's eyes widened. Ned dropped his own sword. He clenched his right fist. He didn't punch Baristan in the face that would kill him. He punched him in the solar plexus, right through the plate armor. The kinetic impact was like a cannonball. The steel breastplate dented inward. The air left Baristan's lungs in a whoosh. The bold knight folded. His eyes rolled back in his head. He collapsed into the water, unconscious. Ned grabbed him by the gorget before he could drown, hauling his head above the surface. "Jory!" Ned shouted, gasping for breath. "Jory! Get him! Bind him! If he dies, I'll have your hide!" Jory Castle and 2 guards scrambled over, dragging the unconscious king's guard to the bank. Ned retrieved his sword. His hands were shaking. That had been close. Too close. But he had saved him. The sword of the morning's rival was alive. Dash! A roar tore across the battlefield. It drowned out the screams, the clash of steel, and the rushing water. Ned turned. In the center of the ford, the battle had stopped. Men were backing away, creating a circle of blood-churned water. Inside the circle were 2 gods. Robert Baratheon, his antlered helm battered, his shield gone, wielding his warhammer with 2 hands. Rhaegar Targaryen, in black armor that looked like night itself, the ruby dragon on his chest blazing in the sun. They circled each other. "Died in the water," Ned whispered. Rhaegar was faster. He rode his horse like a centaur, his long sword flashing out, stinging Robert. A cut to the arm. A slash to the thigh. Robert didn't care. He was a berserker. He ignored the wounds, laughing through the blood. "Come here!" Robert bellowed. "Face me!" Rhaegar lunged. His sword found a gap in Robert's armor, piercing his side. It was a grievous wound. A killing wound for a lesser man. Robert didn't fall. He grunted, grabbing the blade of Rhaegar's sword with his armored hand. He yanked. Rhaegar was pulled off balance. His horse stumbled on the loose stones of the riverbed. It was the moment history held its breath. Robert stood in his stirrups. He raised the hammer. The muscles in his back bunched like iron cables. For Lyanna. The hammer came down. It hit Rhaegar in the chest. The sound was hideous. Metal collapsing. Bone shattering. The ruby dragon exploded. Hundreds of red gems shattered, flying into the air like a spray of frozen blood. They sparkled in the sunlight for a split second before raining down into the rushing water. Rhaegar fell backward. He hit the water with a splash that seemed final. Robert slumped in his saddle, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looked at the body floating in the stream. "I killed him," Robert wheezed. "I killed the dragon." The death of Rhaegar was the death of the army. The royalists saw their prince fall. They saw the rubies float away. And they broke. It started as a waver, then a retreat, then a full-blown rout. Men threw down their spears and ran. They ran south, desperate to put distance between themselves and the demon of the trident. "After them!" Hoster Tully shouted. "Run them down!" The rebel cavalry surged forward, chasing the broken remnants of the Targaryen dynasty. Ned didn't join the chase. He walked his horse through the red water to where Robert sat. Robert looked up. His eyes were glassy with pain and adrenaline. "Ned," Robert said, his voice a ghost of its usual boom. "Did you see? I smashed him." "I saw, Robert," Ned said softly. "It's done." Robert looked down at Rhaegar's body. The current was tugging at the prince's black armor, trying to wash him away. "He doesn't look like a monster," Robert muttered. "He just looks dead." "War makes monsters of us all," Ned said. He looked south. The road to the capital was open. Tywin Lannister would be marching now. The sack was coming. "Can you ride?" Ned asked. "I can ride to hell and back," Robert swore, trying to straighten up and failing. He hissed in pain. Maybe just to the bank." Get him to a maester, Ned ordered the Great Jan. I'm taking the van. We march for King's Landing. After some rest. You're not staying? Robert asked, clutching his side. Tywin Lannister will be on the move, Ned said grimly. I have to get there before he does. I have to stop the slaughter. He spurred his horse out of the water, leaving the rubies behind. The Battle of the Trident was won. But the war for the soul of the realm was just beginning. Chapter 13, March to King's Landing. The Trident, post-battle. The morning after the battle, the air was thick with the smell of wet ash and iron. The Trident had returned to its normal color, washing the blood of princes and peasants alike into the narrow sea, but the scars on the land remained. Ned stood by his horse, watching the sun rise. He looked exhausted. His armor was dented, his cloak stiff with dried mud, but his eyes were wide awake. We move now, Ned told the assembled lords. Robert was still in the medical tent, cursing the maesters who were stitching his side. He wasn't going anywhere for a week. That meant the command fell to Ned. The men are tired, Lord Stark, Lord Vance said. We fought a battle yesterday. And Tywin Lannister has been resting for a year, Ned countered, tightening his saddle girth. He is marching on the capital. I know it. He looked at the Great Jan, Ricard Karstark, and the Blackfish. Take the uninjured. Anyone who can ride and swing a sword. We leave the wounded here with Hoster. I want 10,000 men ready to move in the hour. 10,000 against the lion, the Great Jan grinned, cracking his knuckles. Fair odds. We aren't fighting him, Ned lied, swinging into the saddle. We're racing him. The race. The march to King's Landing was a blur of dust and desperation. Ned pushed the pace relentlessly. He used every trick in his new mental library to keep the column moving, rotating the vanguard, enforcing strict water breaks to prevent heatstroke. Every night, Ned stared south, his senses extended. He could feel the lion. A massive, golden presence moving from the west. Tywin wasn't rushing like Robert, he was moving with the inexorable, crushing weight of a glacier. He should already be on his way to King's Landing, Ned muttered to Howland Reed one night by the fire. He knows Rhaegar is dead. The birds sing, Howland agreed, sharpening his bronze knife. And lions have good ears. If he gets there first. Ned didn't finish the sentence. He knew exactly what Tywin would do. He would try to prove his loyalty to the new regime by presenting Robert with a gruesome gift. Red bodies and red cloaks. Elia, Ned thought. Rhaenys. Aegon. He remembered the Oberyn Martell of the show, the grief that had poisoned a kingdom. He remembered the mountain smashing a baby's head against a wall. Not this time, Ned whispered. The gates of the gods. Tywin Lannister arrived at King's Landing 2 weeks later. The sun glinted off the red and golden armor of 12,000 Westermen. They looked magnificent, clean, disciplined, and utterly terrifying. The Lion of Lannister flew high above the gate of the gods. Inside the Red Keep, panic was a physical thing. King Aerys too sat on the Iron Throne, his fingernails digging into the armrests, scabs breaking open. He was a scarecrow of a man, consumed by madness and rot. He is here to save me. Aerys cackled, looking at his council. My old friend Tywin. He has come to crush the rebels. Your Grace, Varys whispered, his powdered face pale. The lion does not come to save the dragon. He comes to eat it. Keep the gates barred. We can hold until. Treachery. Aerys screamed, spitting foam. You are all traitors. Pycelle. What says the citadel? Grand Maester Pycelle shuffled forward, his chains clinking softly. He looked frail, harmless. Lord Tywin is a man of honor, Your Grace, Pycelle quavered. He served you faithfully for 20 years. He is the only hope we have against the Stark savage and the Baratheon usurper. Open the gates. Let the lions defend you. Ares looked at Varus, then at Pycelle. He looked at the walls where he imagined traitors lurking in every shadow. Open them, Ares commanded. Open the gates for my friend. The heavy timber doors of the Gate of the Gods groaned open. The portcullis rose. Tywin Lannister rode in. He didn't smile. He didn't bow. He raised his hand. Sack the city, Tywin ordered calmly. It happened instantly. The disciplined columns of the Westerlands dissolved into a mob of butchers. They didn't march to the walls to defend the city, they turned on the city itself. Spears were thrust into the bellies of the gold cloaks who had just welcomed them. Shops were kicked open. Torches were thrown into thatch roofs. The screaming started near the gate and spread like a wildfire. Kill them all, a Lannister captain shouted, cutting down a fleeing baker. For King Robert. It was a lie, of course. They weren't doing it for Robert. They were doing it because Tywin had taken the leash off. This was the lion's price for being late. They were raping. They were looting. They were murdering men, women, and children in the streets. The City of Kings is becoming a slaughterhouse. Ned Stark arrived 30 minutes too late. He crested the final hill overlooking the city and saw the smoke beginning to rise. It wasn't the black pall of a ruined city yet, but the grey, choking tendrils of a fire just finding its appetite. 7 hells, the great Jan breathed, pulling up his horse. They're already inside. Ned felt it before he saw it. A wave of terror and death hitting his mind like a physical blow. Thousands of voices crying out in panic. It was deafening in the force. Tywin. Ned didn't freeze. He didn't hesitate. They aren't fighting the city, Ned said, his voice cold as the winter wind. They're sacking it. He drew his sword. It was the castle-forged blade he had used at the trident, sharp and heavy. We are not here to watch, Ned shouted to his vanguard. We are here to save the people. Any man who harms a civilian dies. Any man who rapes dies. And any man wearing a red cloak. He looked at the great Jan. Is an enemy. Kill the lions. The great Jan asked, a savage grin spreading across his face. I was hoping you'd say that. Ricard. Ned barked. Take the left flank. Secure the Street of Seeds. Great Jan, take the right. Clear Flea Bottom. I'm going up the middle. To the keep. Howland Reed asked quietly. To the keep, Ned confirmed. Before he kills the children. The lions watch. From the high balcony of the Gate of the Gods, Tywin Lannister watched the chaos of King's Landing with a dispassionate eye. He did not enjoy the slaughter, nor did he shrink from it. It was simply a necessary tool. The Targaryens had to be uprooted, root and stem, and the city had to be pacified before Robert arrived. A brutal sack would ensure the small folk feared the new regime more than they missed the old one. The gold cloaks are broken, my lord, Kevin Lannister reported, stepping up beside him. The city is yours. Not yet, Tywin said, his green eyes flecked with gold, staring north. The red keep still holds. And Ares. He stopped. Through the smoke and the screams, a new sound cut through the air. A horn. Not a lion's horn. A deep, mournful sound, like the howl of a winter storm. Tywin looked to the northern road. A column of cavalry was smashing into the rear of his own forces. Grey banners. A white dire wolf running on a field of ice. Stark, Tywin murmured. He made good time. He's attacking, Kevin said, sounding confused. Why is he attacking? We are on the same side. We declared for Robert. Tywin watched as a wedge of northern cavalry cut through a company of Lannister spearmen like a knife through butter. He saw the discipline. He saw the fury. He does not see it that way, Tywin said coldly. He sees a sack. He sees dishonor. He watched the leader of the vanguard, a figure in grey armor riding a black horse. The man was moving with terrifying speed, carving a path straight toward the Street of Sisters. "That is Eddard Stark?" Tywin asked. "It must be," Kevin said. "Though he fights like a demon. Look at him." Tywin narrowed his eyes. He saw Stark deflect a spear thrust with a movement so fast it blurred, then decapitate the attacker with a single, fluid backswing. It wasn't the flailing of a berserker, it was the precision of a surgeon cutting out a tumor. "He is cutting a path to the keep," Tywin realized. "He intends to take the prize before we do." "Should we reinforce the center?" Kevin asked. "No," Tywin said, turning away from the balcony. "If we fight the Stark host in the streets, we lose the army. Let him go. Let him break his teeth on the mountain. Send word to the commanders secure the city, but do not engage the Stark banner unless attacked. We are allies, remember." Tywin's lip curled slightly. "Let the wolf have the keep. Let us see if he has the stomach to do what must be done to the children." The Street of Sisters. Ned didn't know Tywin was watching, and he didn't care. The street was a choke point, clogged with looting soldiers and fleeing civilians. A squad of Westerland's men-at-arms had cornered a group of merchants against a wall, spears lowered. Ned hit them like a freight train. He didn't use a force push. He didn't throw lightning. He just rode his horse directly into the lead soldier, the impact shattering the man's shield and sending him flying 10 feet backward. Ned vaulted from the saddle. He landed in the mud, sword in hand. Flow. The world slowed down. He could feel the panic of the merchants, the aggression of the soldiers, the heat of the burning buildings. A Lannister man swung a spear at Ned's head. Ned didn't block. He ducked under the blade, moving faster than the soldier could track. He rose, driving his shoulder into the man's chest. The impact cracked the breastplate. The sergeant collapsed, gasping for air that wouldn't come. 2 more soldiers rushed him. Sword and axe. Ned spun. He parried the sword with a flick of his wrist, the force of his parry knocking the weapon wide. In the same motion, he slashed the axe man across the throat. 1 stroke. Clean. Lethal. He reversed his grip and drove his pommel into the swordsman's helmet. Steel crumpled. The man dropped. "Go!" Ned shouted to the merchants. "Get to the gates. The North holds the gates." He didn't wait for a thanks. He kept moving. He ran up the Street of Sisters. Every 100 yards, another atrocity. Another group of red cloaks thinking they were the masters of the city. Ned became a blur of grey steel. He didn't duel. He didn't exchange pleasantries. He killed. A knight on horseback charged him, lance lowered. Ned stood his ground. He waited until the tip of the lance was feet away. Force speed. He sidestepped. He grabbed the shaft of the lance as it passed. He didn't just hold it, he clamped down with the grip of a vice. The momentum of the horse nearly tore his arm off, but he reinforced his muscles, his bones, his tendons with the force. He held. The knight was ripped out of his saddle by his own momentum. He crashed onto the cobblestones with a bone-shattering crunch. Ned stepped over him, eyes fixed on the red keep rising ahead. The gates to the keep were closed, but the postern door was being battered by a ram carried by Lannister men. "Clear them out!" Ned roared to the Great Jan, who had caught up, his axe dripping red. With pleasure, the Great Jan bellowed. The Northmen surged forward. The Lannisters at the gate turned to fight, but they were looters, not a shield wall. They broke against the ferocity of the Starks. Ned reached the ram. He didn't wait for his men to pick it up. He grabbed one of the iron handles. "Heave!" he shouted. He pulled. He poured his will into his muscles. The ram, meant for 4 men, lifted easily. With the Great Jan and 2 others, they swung it. Boom! The postern door splintered. Boom! The hinges groaned. Boom! The door gave way. Ned was the first one through. He stepped into the outer yard of the Red Keep. It was chaos. Loyalists fighting Lannisters. Bodies everywhere. But the path to Mugger's Holdfast, the fortress within a fortress where the royal family lived, was clear. Ned looked up at the massive Holdfast. He felt them. Two small, terrified lights in the force. And one terrified mother. Elia. And closer, a massive, burning void of hatred. The mountain. Ricard. Great Yan. Ned shouted, pointing to the main yard. Hold this ground. Kill anyone wearing red who isn't a Stark. And you. Ricard yelled, cutting down a Lannister archer. I'm going for the children. Ned sprinted across the yard. He moved with a speed that made the soldiers pause. He vaulted a pile of corpses. He didn't stop to fight the stragglers. He deflected arrows with casual swipes of his blade, his senses warning him of the danger microseconds before it arrived. He reached the drawbridge of Mugger's Holdfast. He was coming for them. Not as a hero of song, but as a father who remembered a different life, and a different grief. Not today, Tywin, Ned thought, his grip tightening on his sword as he entered the dark maw of the Holdfast. You don't get to present these bodies. Chapter 14, The Monsters in the Dark. The Corridor of Death. The air inside Mugger's Holdfast was different from the rest of the Red Keep. Outside, the air stank of smoke, ozone, and the copper tang of fresh blood spilled in the open. Inside, the air was heavy, still, and suffocatingly cold. It smelled of old stone, dust, and the terror of centuries. Ned Stark moved through the lower levels like a ghost. He had left Ricard Karstark to secure the perimeter, ensuring no more of Tywin's lions could pour into the sanctuary of the royal family. Now, he was alone. He didn't run. He stalked. His boots made no sound on the thick Myrish carpets that lined the hallway leading to the royal apartments. The torchlight flickered, casting long, dancing shadows that looked like grasping claws. Ned closed his eyes for a heartbeat, tuning out the distant roar of the sack outside. He reached out with his senses, pushing his awareness down the corridor. Pulse. 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 He felt them. Not the bright, chaotic fires of men fighting for their lives, but the cold, muddy signatures of men waiting to do murder. 6 of them, Ned analyzed. Guard duty. Protecting the predators for the prey inside. And beyond them, a black void. A gravity well of malice so dense it felt like it was warping the air around it. The mountain. And beside him, a smaller, sharper stain of cruelty. Amory Lorch. Ned opened his eyes. His grip tightened on the hilt of his castle-forged longsword. It wasn't ice was still somewhere in this castle, likely in the hands of the Mad King or his executioner, but it was good northern steel. It would hold. He turned the corner. The hallway was wide, lined with tapestries depicting the conquests of Aegon the Dragon. Standing before the heavy oak door at the far end were 6 Lannister guardsmen. They wore crimson cloaks and half-helms, their swords drawn. They looked nervous, jumping slightly as Ned appeared. Halt, one of them shouted, leveling his sword. This area is secured by order of Lord Tywin Lannister. No entry. Ned didn't stop. He didn't slow down. He kept walking, his pace steady, his eyes locked on the door behind them. I said halt, he screamed, his voice cracking. Kill him. The soldiers surged forward. They were disciplined men, veterans of the Westerlands, but to Ned, they moved underwater. His reflexes kicked in. The world sharpened. He saw the sweat on the attacker's brow. He saw the notch in the second soldier's blade. He saw the fear in the eyes of the man at the back. The first 2 soldiers swung a clumsy pincer movement meant to trap him. Ned didn't parry. He flowed. He stepped inside the arc of the left soldier's swing, the blade passing inches from his ear. With a fluid motion, he drove his elbow into the man's throat. There was a sickening crunch of cartilage. The soldier dropped his sword, gagging, collapsing to his knees. In the same breath, Ned spun. His sword flashed in the torchlight. He didn't hack, he sliced. A precise cut across the unarmored back of the second soldier's knee. Hamstring severed. The man screamed and fell. The remaining 4 hesitated. They had just seen 2 of their comrades disabled in the blink of an eye by a man who hadn't even raised his voice. "You are in my way," Ned said. His voice was low, vibrating with a cold intensity that made the torches flicker. "Get him," the captain roared, lunging with a thrust. Ned slapped the blade aside with the flat of his own sword. He stepped in, grabbing the man by the gorget. With a burst of force-enhanced power, he threw the man armored and heavy down the hall. He flew 10 feet and crashed into the wall, sliding down unconscious. The last 3 broke. They scrambled over each other to attack, desperate to end the threat. Ned met them with a whirlwind of steel. He ducked a high cut, slashed a belly, parried a thrust, and delivered a pommel strike to a temple. 1, 2, 3. Silence returned to the hallway, broken only by the groans of the wounded. Ned stepped over the bodies. He didn't look down. His eyes were fixed on the door. The oak was thick, banded with iron, but it was slightly ajar. From inside, he heard a scream. A woman's scream. High, terrified, and desperate. And then a sound that made his blood freeze. A wet, heavy thud. Like a melon being smashed against a wall. Ned kicked the door open. The nursery. The room was a scene from a nightmare. It was a nursery, painted in soft pastels, filled with expensive toys and carved wooden horses. Sunlight streamed through the balcony windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. But the peace was shattered. On the left side of the room, Sir Amory Lorch was on his knees, peering under a large 4-poster bed. He was grinning, a cruel, rat-like expression. He was reaching underneath, his gauntlet hand grasping for something. "Come here, little dragon," Lorch cooed. "I have a present for you." A small whimper answered him. Renis. On the right side of the room, Princess Elia Martell was backed against a wardrobe. She was frail, her dark hair wild, her dress torn. She was shrieking, clawing at the armored giant who loomed over her. Sir Gregor Clegane. The mountain that rides. He was a tower of yellow steel. His fists were coated in red. And on the floor, against the far wall, a smear of crimson. A bundle of white cloth that was no longer white. Aegon. Ned stared at the broken form of the baby. The head was gone. Crushed against the stone. A cold, white rage washed over Ned. It wasn't the hot fury of Robert, it was the absolute zero of the winter storm. He felt the force swirling around him, responding to his anger, darkening the edges of his vision. "Hey!" Ned barked. The sound cracked through the room like a whip. Both knights froze. Amory Lorch pulled his head out from under the bed. Gregor Clegane turned slowly, his massive boots crunching on broken glass. They looked at Ned. A lone figure in grey wool and battered mail, holding a sword that looked like a toothpick compared to the mountain's great sword. "Stark," Lorch sneered, standing up. "You're lost, wolf. This is lion work." "I see no lions," Ned said, his voice deadly calm. "I see dogs. Mad dogs." He stepped into the room, putting himself between the knights and the door. "Why don't you pick someone your size?" Ned asked. The mountain laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that vibrated in the floorboards. "There is no one my size." "I'm here," Ned said. Amory Lorch, eager for glory and annoyed by the interruption, drew his sword. "I'll handle him, Gregor." "You finish the woman." Lorch charged. He was a knight of landed gentry, trained at arms, but he was arrogant. He ran at Ned with his sword raised high, screaming a war cry, leaving his entire midsection open. Ned didn't even raise his guard. He watched Lorch come. He watched the sloppy footwork. He watched the telegraphed swing. Too slow. When Lorch was 3 paces away, Ned moved. He didn't dodge backward, he stepped forward and to the left, slipping inside Lorch's reach. The maneuver was so fast it blurred. Lorch's sword chopped empty air. Ned spun. His blade, honed to a razor edge, flashed in the sunlight. Slash! The sword passed through Amory Lorch's neck. It was effortless. The steel met resistance, then nothing. Lorch took 2 more steps, his momentum carrying him forward. His head slid from his shoulders, hitting the floor with a dull thud. His body collapsed a second later, twitching. Ned flicked the blood from his blade. He didn't look at the dead man. He looked at the mountain. Gregor Clegane stared at his companion's headless corpse. Then he looked at Ned. The amusement was gone from his eyes, replaced by a dull, confused anger. He shoved Elia aside. The princess fell hard, hitting her head on the wardrobe, and slumped into a daze. Gregor drew his great sword. It was a monstrosity of steel, 6 feet long, heavy enough to cleave a horse in 2. He held it with one hand. "You're fast," Gregor rumbled. "Like a fly." "And you're slow," Ned replied. "Like a stone," Gregor roared. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. He charged, raising the great sword. The floorboards groaned under his weight. He was a tank in human form. Unstoppable. Immovable. He swung. A horizontal slash meant to cut Ned in half at the waist. Ned didn't block. He dropped into a crouch. The massive blade whistled over his head, slicing through a heavy oak table behind him as if it were parchment. Ned exploded upward. He didn't strike at the mountain's chest or head, the armor was too thick there. He struck low. Swipe. His sword carved a deep line across the back of Gregor's right knee, finding the gap in the plate armor. Gregor bellowed in pain. His leg buckled. He stumbled, catching himself on a heavy chest of drawers. He spun around, favoring his right leg, his face twisted in a rictus of hate behind his visor. He reached down, clutching his leg, glaring at Ned with eyes like black pits. "I'll crush you!" Gregor screamed. "I'll squeeze your head until it pops." Ned stood 10 feet away, sword held loosely at his side. He wasn't panting. He wasn't sweating. He looked bored. "Come and try," Ned taunted. "Or do you only fight women and babies?" The insult pierced through the mountain's pain. With a roar of incoherent rage, Gregor lunged. He ignored his wounded leg, driving himself forward with pure hate. He brought the great sword down in a vertical chop, putting all 400 pounds of his weight behind it. Predictable. Ned stepped sideways. Just a single, graceful step. The great sword smashed into the floor, burying itself 6 inches deep in the wood and stone. Before Gregor could wrench it free, Ned moved. He stepped in close. He swung his sword at the other leg, the left one. A brutal, 2-handed slash at the thigh. The blade bit deep, shearing through mail and muscle. Gregor's remaining support vanished. With a sound like a collapsing tower, the mountain crashed to his knees. He was still huge, even kneeling. He looked up at Ned, his hands still gripping the hilt of his stuck sword, his expression one of shock. He wasn't used to looking up at anyone. "You're just a man," Ned whispered. He didn't hesitate. He didn't monologue. He swung his sword with all the strength and anger he could muster. The blade struck Gregor's neck, right between the helmet and the gorget. It sheared through mail, leather, muscle, and bone. The mountain's head rolled across the floor, coming to a stop near the boots of Amory Lorch. The massive body slumped forward, a fountain of blood soaking the rugs. Silence filled the room. Ned stood there for a moment, breathing deeply, cycling the adrenaline out of his system. He cleaned his sword on the mountain's yellow tabard, the bright fabric now stained dark crimson. He sheathed the blade. He turned to the corner. Elia Martell was watching him. She had pulled herself up to a sitting position. Her eyes were wide, glassy with shock, staring at the headless giant who had been moments away from raping her. Ned approached her slowly, showing his empty hands. "Princess," Ned said softly. "Are you injured?" Elia blinked. She looked at Ned, then at the dead men, then back at Ned. She touched her head, her fingers coming away bloody, but she shook her head. I am alive," she whispered, her voice trembling. You killed him." "He needed killing," Ned said simply. "Are you okay?" Elia nodded slowly, tears beginning to spill down her dust-streaked cheeks. Yes. Thank you. Thank you." Ned looked toward the bed. "Tell her to come out," Ned said gently. "It's safe now." Elia swallowed a sob. She crawled across the floor, ignoring the blood, reaching for the space under the bed. "Renis!" Elia called, her voice breaking. "Sweetling? Come out. The bad men are gone." The wolf chased them away. There was a rustling. A moment later, a small face peered out from under the dust ruffle. Renis Targaryen. She was clutching a black kitten so tightly her knuckles were white. She looked at the bodies on the floor, her dark eyes wide with a child's incomprehension of death. "Did you kill the monsters?" Renis asked, looking at Ned. "I did," Ned said, crouching down to be on her level. "They won't hurt anyone ever again." Renis looked at him, her lower lip trembling. She tugged on Ned's grey cloak with a small, shaking hand. "Is the stag man coming?" she whispered, her voice thick with fear. "Mother says the stag wants to hurt us." Ned felt a pang in his heart. He stayed low, looking the child in the eye. "The stag is my brother," Ned said firmly. "And he listens to the wolf. No one is going to hurt you, little one. You are safe. I promise." Elia pulled her daughter into a fierce hug, burying her face in the girl's hair, rocking back and forth. Ned watched them, a lump in his throat. He had saved them. He had actually done it. Then, his eyes drifted to the wall. To the red smear. To the bundle. The victory turned to ash in his mouth. "I'm sorry," Ned said, his voice thick with grief. "I'm so sorry, Princess. I wasn't fast enough. I couldn't save Aegon." Elia stopped rocking. She looked up at Ned. Her expression shifted. The panic faded, replaced by a strange, cold sorrow. She shook her head. "That is not my baby," Elia whispered. Ned froze. "What?" Elia looked at the broken bundle. "My son. Aegon, he died 2 days after his birth." Ned stared at her. "Died? He was sickly born," Elia said, her voice hollow. "He was frail like me. He stopped breathing 2 days after birth." She looked at Ned with haunted eyes. "I was terrified. Ares, if he knew the dragon's heir had died of weakness, he would have burned us. He would have blamed me. He would have said I poisoned him." She gestured helplessly to the bundle. "I bought a baby. From a tanner in Flea Bottom. A newborn who had no mother. He had the hair, pale silver, likely a dragonseed's bastard from the street of silk. His father sold him for a flask of wine. I switched them. To escape Ares. Even Rhaegar doesn't know about it, only my family knows." Ned looked at the bundle. The horror was different now. It wasn't the death of a prince, it was the death of a nobody. A child sold for wine and murdered for a crown he didn't own. "It was still a life," Ned said softly. "A new life. Innocent." "I know," Elia wept, fresh tears falling. "I know. May the mother have mercy on me. I sacrificed one child to save another. Ned placed a hand on her shoulder. He didn't judge her. In this Game of Thrones, survival was the only victory. You did what a mother had to do, Ned said. You are safe now. Both of you. Heavy footsteps thundered in the hallway. Ned. The great Jan burst into the room, his axe covered in gore. He stopped dead in the doorway, his eyes widening as he took in the scene. He saw the headless mountain. He saw the beheaded Lorch. He saw Ned standing over the princess. The giant of Umber whistled low. By the old gods, Ned, Great Jan grumbled, stepping over Lorch's body. You didn't leave any for me. I wanted a crack at the big one. He wasn't much of a fight, Ned lied, though with his new powers, it felt like the truth. How is the situation downstairs? Ned asked, standing up. Handled, Great Jan grinned savagely. The Lannisters are retreating or dying. We hold the keep. Ricard has secured the lower levels. The gold cloaks have surrendered. Good, Ned said. He turned to the Great Jan, his face serious. John, this is Princess Elia and Princess Rennis. The Great Jan looked at the Dornish woman and the child. His grin faded, replaced by a solemn respect. He bowed his massive head. Princess. John, Ned commanded. You are to guard them. Personally. Put 10 of your best men on the door. No one enters. Not Tywin Lannister. Not Robert. Not even God himself unless I say so. Do you understand? The Great Jan straightened, puffing out his chest. Lord Stark. They're under Umber protection now. Anyone who wants them has to go through me. And I'm harder to kill than that lump of meat on the floor. I know you are, Ned smiled. He turned back to Elia. I have to leave, Ned said. I have a meeting with the Mad King. You stay here. You are safe now. Elia looked at him. For the first time, the terror in her eyes was replaced by something else. Gratitude. And trust. Thank you, Lord Stark, she whispered. Take care, Princess, Ned said. He nodded to Rennis, who waved a shy hand at him. Ned turned and walked out of the room. He stepped over the carcass of the mountain, his boots leaving bloody footprints on the carpet. He walked down the hallway, the adrenaline fading, leaving him cold and focused. He had saved the innocents. He had killed the monsters. Now, only one monster remained. The one who sat on the Iron Throne. Ned checked his sword. It was still sharp. Time to end this, he whispered. Chapter 15, The King of Ashes. Eddard Stark pick. Ashura Dane pick. Elia Martell pick. The Golden Lion. The doors to the Great Hall did not open easily. They were heavy, bronze-bound monstrosities that seemed reluctant to reveal the secrets inside. Ned signaled Ricard Karstark and his personal guard to hang back. Let me do this, he said quietly. If things go wrong, secure the doors. He pushed his way inside. The throne room was a cavern of shadows. The dragon skulls lining the walls seemed to watch him with empty, accusatory sockets. The air was still, smelling faintly of sulfur and old blood. At the far end, rising from the gloom like a jagged metal beast, was the Iron Throne. And sitting upon it was a boy in white armor. Sir Jaime Lannister looked impossibly young. His golden sword lay across his knees, staining his white cloak with fresh red. At the foot of the dais lay a heap of black robes and matted silver hair, the corpse of Aerys Targaryen. Ned walked the length of the hall. The sound of his boots on the stone floor was the only noise in the world. He stopped at the base of the steps, looking up at the Kingslayer. Jaime was slouching, trying to look bored, trying to look dangerous. But Ned's force sense picked up the truth vibrating in the air: panic. Pure, unadulterated terror masked by a Lannister sneer. Jaime looked up, his green eyes bright and hard. "Stark," Jaime said, his voice echoing in the vast space. "I was wondering who would be the first to claim the prize. I was just keeping the seat warm for you. Fancy it? It's a bit spiky." Ned looked at the monstrosity of melted swords. "And sit in a chair that cuts you if you lean back? No thanks. You couldn't pay me enough to rule from that thing." Jaime blinked. The nonchalance threw him off. He had expected fire and brimstone, judgment and honor. Ned waved a hand, beckoning him. "Come down from there, Sir Jaime. You look ridiculous." The insult stung. Jaime stood up stiffly, sheathing his gilded sword. He walked down the steps, stepping over the body of the king he had sworn to protect. He stopped a few feet from Ned, chin held high. "What happened to Ares?" Ned asked, gesturing to the sprawled corpse on the floor. "I killed him," Jaime said, the words tumbling out like a challenge. "I swore to die for him, and I shoved my sword in his back instead." "Why did you kill him?" Ned asked. Jaime laughed bitterly, looking away. "Why does it matter? He is dead. I broke my vows." "That depends," Ned said. "Ares was a monster. We all know what he did. Just because a man wears a crown doesn't mean he deserves to breathe." Behind them, Ricard Karstark let out a low grunt of surprise. Jaime stared at Ned, stunned. The swagger evaporated, leaving a 16-year-old boy trembling in bloodied armor. You aren't going to put me in dungeons." "I know why I wanted him dead," Ned said, gesturing to the black mourning clothes beneath his armor. "He burned my family. But you? You stood by him until yesterday. Why today? Why him?" Ned pointed to a second body lying near the wall, a man in the charred robes of a pyromancer. "And who is that?" Jaime looked at the dead pyromancer with undisguised loathing. "Rossart. The king's hand. He was a pyromancer." "A pyromancer hand," Ned mused. "That sounds like a bad combination. What was he doing?" Jaime swallowed hard. He looked around the empty hall as if the ghosts were listening. "He was going to burn it down," Jaime whispered. "All of it." The air in the room grew heavy. "Burn what?" Ned asked, though a cold dread was already pooling in his stomach. "The city," Jaime said, his voice rising in hysteria. "Ares, he had caches of wildfire placed everywhere. Under the September of Baylor. Under the Dragon Pit. The Flea Bottom slums. Even the Red Keep." Jaime looked at Ned, his eyes pleading for understanding. "He told Rossart to light them. He said, 'Let Robert be king over charred bones and cooked meat.' He was going to kill everyone, Stark. 500,000 people. I couldn't let that happen." Ned felt the truth of it ringing in the force. It wasn't a lie. It was a nightmare averted by a single sword stroke. "So you killed Rossart," Ned deduced. "And then Ares." "I had to before he could find another messenger," Jaime confirmed, shaking. "Did I do right? Or is honor just a lie?" "Honor is protecting those who cannot protect themselves," Ned said firmly. "You saved this city, Jaime. More lives than any night in history." "Ned!" Karstark called out from the door, looking pale. "Wildfire? We need to evacuate. If there are more of them." "Hold," Ned ordered, raising a hand. "Panic is the spark. If we run screaming, the city tramples itself. We handle this quietly." He turned back to Jaime. "Are there other pyromancers who know the locations?" "2, Jaime said. Bellies and Garrigus. My men will find them," Ned promised. "But right now, I need you to do something else. Something harder than killing a king." "What?" Jaime asked, wiping sweat and blood from his forehead. "Go to Mager's Holdfast," Ned said. "The royal apartments." Jaime flinched. Elia. The children. They are alive, Ned said. I secured them myself. But the keep is full of wolves and lions, and not all of them are tame. The Great Jan guards the door, but he doesn't know the castle like you do. Ned stepped closer, looking the young knight in the eye. You failed Rhaegar, Ned said brutally. You failed to protect his wife and children from this war. Go make it right. Stand outside that door and let everyone see that a Lannister is protecting the innocent, not butchering them. Jaime took a breath. He seemed to stand taller. The ghost of the arrogant Kingslayer faded, replaced by something resembling a true knight. I will, Jaime swore. No one gets past me. Good, Ned said. Now go. Before I change my mind about the chair. Jaime nodded and hurried toward the side exit leading to the holdfast. He paused at the door, looking back at Ned Stark standing over the dead Dragon King. Stark, Jaime said. Thank you. Then he was gone. Ned was alone with the Iron Throne. He looked at the twisted metal chair. It was ugly. It was uncomfortable. It was the ultimate symbol of power in Westeros, and Ned hated it. He signaled to Karstark. Ricard, Ned said. Take 10 men. Go to the Alchemists' Guild. Find the men Jaime told about. You know what to do. Aye, my lord, Ricard said, looking relieved to have orders. And the king? Ned looked down at Aerys. Cover him up. And get someone to scrub the floor. It smells like a slaughterhouse in here. Ned turned and walked out of the great hall. He needed fresh air. The Broken Claw. Outside the Red Keep, near the Trader's Walk, Tywin Lannister sat atop his white warhorse. He was an island of gold in a sea of smoke. He was waiting. He had given clear orders to Clegane and Lorch. They were to scale the walls of Maegor's Holdfast, eliminate the Targaryen heirs, and wrap the bodies in crimson cloaks to hide the blood. It was a necessary brutality, a gift to Robert Baratheon that would prove House Lannister's loyalty beyond doubt. A Lannister captain came running from the direction of the Holdfast. He was breathless, his helmet askew, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. He stopped before Tywin's horse and fell to one knee. My lord, the soldier gasped. Report, Tywin commanded, his voice devoid of emotion. Are the children secured? Dead, my lord? I mean, no. Not the children. The soldier swallowed hard, terrified of the message he had to deliver. Sir Gregor, and Sir Amory, they are dead. Tywin's face remained a mask, but his gloved hand tightened imperceptibly on the reins. Dead? How? Stark, the soldier whispered. Lord Stark. He breached the Holdfast alone. He cut them down. They say he took the mountain's head with a single stroke. Impossible, Kevin Lannister muttered from beside Tywin. It is true, sire, the soldier insisted. I saw the bodies. Stark holds the nursery. The Princess Elia and the girl are alive. He has placed northern berserkers at the door. No one can get in. Tywin felt a cold spike of anger in his gut. It wasn't the heat of rage, it was the icy frustration of a master chess player who realizes his opponent has flipped the board. He had planned this perfectly. Robert would have been grateful. The Stark boy was supposed to be slow, honorable, and late. Instead, Ned Stark had outmaneuvered him. He had taken the keep, killed Tywin's monsters, and saved the very people Tywin needed dead to secure his political future. Now, Tywin had no gift for Robert. He only had a sacked city and a reputation for brutality that yielded no reward. The Northmen hold the inner yard, the captain continued, his voice trembling. They are arresting our men. Stark has ordered them to hang looters. Tywin looked at the smoke rising from the city. The sack had served its purpose to terrify, but now it was a liability. If he continued to fight, he would be fighting the Starks, the Arryns, and the Tullus. He would be the villain of the rebellion, not its savior. He took a slow breath, locking the anger away behind his eyes. "Sound the retreat," Tywin ordered, his voice flat. "My lord?" Kevin asked. "Pull the men back," Tywin said. "Stop the looting. Assemble the host outside the city gates. We are allies of the crown, not conquerors." He spurred his horse forward, toward the main courtyard. "I will speak with Lord Stark myself." The Lion and the Wolf. The courtyard of the Red Keep was a scene of controlled chaos. Stark soldiers were corralling the remaining Lannister looters, disarming them and marching them into holding pens. Ned walked out into the sunlight, squinting against the glare. Across the yard, Tywin Lannister rode in. His armor shone, his crimson cloak was spotless, and his face was a mask of icy calm. Ned walked to the center of the yard to meet him. He was covered in grime, blood, and dust. He looked like a common soldier compared to the Lion Lord. Tywin reined in his horse. He looked down at Ned with heavy-lidded eyes. "Lord Stark," Tywin said. His voice was smooth, devoid of emotion. "It seems you arrived ahead of schedule." "I wanted to be a bit earlier," Ned replied, his voice cold. "You have secured the keep," Tywin observed, looking at the grey banners fluttering from the ramparts. "And the city?" "The city is under my protection," Ned stated. "I have ordered my men to hang any soldier found looting or raping." "That includes yours, Lord Tywin." Tywin's eyes narrowed slightly. It was the only sign of irritation he allowed. King's Landing is a nest of Targaryen loyalists. A certain amount of severity is required to pacify it. "There is severity, and there is butchery," Ned said. "We are not butchers." "We are at war," Tywin countered. "And to win a war, one must be willing to do what is necessary." "The war is won," Ned said. "Aerys is dead." Tywin paused. "Dead? By whose hand?" "His own King's Guard," Ned said calmly. "Justice found him." "And the others?" Tywin asked. "Rhaegar's children? His wife?" Ned held Tywin's gaze. He knew exactly what Tywin had planned. He had sent the Mountain and Lorch to kill the children, to present their bodies to Robert as a grotesque token of loyalty. A blood price to buy his way onto the winning side. "They are safe," Ned said. "Under heavy guard. No one touches them." Tywin was silent for a long moment. He was recalculating the board. He had lost his bargaining chip. "Robert will not suffer Targaryen to live," Tywin said softly. "You are delaying the inevitable, Stark. And you are making enemies you do not need." "I don't fear enemies I can see," Ned replied. "And Robert will decide their fate when he arrives. Until then, they are under the protection of House Stark. If you want them, you'll have to go through me. And my army." Ned gestured to the walls, where thousands of northern archers and infantry stood watching the confrontation. Tywin looked at the walls. He looked at Ned. "You have a soft heart, Lord Stark," Tywin said. "It will be your undoing in the south." "Winter is coming, Lord Tywin," Ned replied. "We find that soft hearts keep us warm. Hard ones freeze." Tywin pulled on his reins, turning his horse. "My men will encamp outside the city walls. To avoid confusion." "A wise choice," Ned said. He watched the lion ride away. Tywin Lannister had retreated. For now. The city secured. By nightfall, King's Landing was quiet. The fires in Flea Bottom had been extinguished. The streets were patrolled by Stark and Arryn men. The Lannister army was camped outside the Lion Gate, sulking. Ned sat on the steps of the September of Baelor, watching the city breathe a sigh of relief. Howland Reed materialized from the shadows. The Crannogman smelled of smoke and chemicals. "It is done?" Ned asked quietly. "The pyromancers are dealt with," Howland said. The wildfire beneath the Great September has been neutralized. The caches under the dragon pit are flooded. The city is safe from the madman's fire. Good, Ned exhaled, feeling the tension drain from his shoulders. We sit on a powder keg, Howland. But at least the fuse is wet. Robert is 2 days behind us, Howland noted. When he arrives, he will be king. He will, Ned agreed. And I will be done with this place. He stood up, looking north. He missed the cold. He missed the clean air. He missed a life that wasn't filled with snakes and lions. We hold the city until he comes, Ned said. We keep the peace. And then, we go find Lyanna. He touched the hilt of his sword. He had changed history today. He had saved the innocents. He had stopped the sack from becoming a tragedy. But as he looked at the red keep looming in the dark, Ned knew the game wasn't over. It was just changing players. Let Robert have the chair, Ned thought. I'll take the peace. Chapter 16, The Wolf's Ultimatum. The Arrival. 2 days later, the bells of King's Landing rang again. This time, they didn't ring in panic or as a secret code for a hiding stag. They rang in celebration. Or at least, the forced, desperate celebration of a city that just wanted the soldiers to stop killing people. Ned Stark, with a newly secured ice ancestral Valyrian steel sword of Stark's at his hip, stood atop the walls of the Gate of the Gods, looking down at the King's Road. Beside him stood Tywin Lannister. They were a study in contrasts. Tywin was resplendent in gold armor, his crimson cloak billowing in the wind, his face a mask of bored superiority. Ned was dressed in simple grey wool and battered mail, the dust of the trident still clinging to his boots. He comes, Tywin said, his voice devoid of emotion. Below them, the vanguard of the main rebel host was approaching. The banners of House Baratheon, House Arryn, and House Tully snapped in the breeze. Thousands of men marched in good order, a stark difference to the chaotic mob of Westermen who had sacked the city days prior. So he does, Ned replied. You have kept the city intact, Tywin observed, his eyes scanning the streets where Stark patrols were aggressively maintaining order. I kept it breathing, Ned corrected. There is a difference. Robert will expect a coronation, Tywin said. The throne room is scrubbed. The blood is gone, Ned said. The smell isn't. He turned away from the parapet. Come, Lord Tywin. The king is here. We shouldn't keep him waiting. The Tower of the Hand. Before the council convened, Ned had one final loose end to secure. He made his way to the Tower of the Hand. The entrance was barricaded by Umber men who looked more like bears in plate mail than guards. They saluted as Ned passed. Inside the solar, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Princess Elia sat by the hearth, clutching Rhaenys as if the stones themselves might attack her. Standing between them and the door was Sir Jaime Lannister. He had cleaned his armor, but the scratching on the white enamel from the fighting remained. He looked exhausted, leaning slightly against a heavy oak table. Lord Stark, Jaime said, straightening up as Ned entered. Sir Jaime, Ned replied. Your father is in the city. He's riding to meet Robert now. Jaime's expression tightened, a flicker of something painful crossing his face. I know. Uncle Kevin came to see me. He brought a message. Let me guess, Ned said, pouring himself a cup of water from a pitcher on the table. Lord Tywin wants you to put down the white cloak and pick up the crimson one. He wants his heir back. Jaime let out a bitter laugh. He commanded it. Said my time playing guard was over. He thinks he can just wipe away the vows because we won the war. Tywin Lannister thinks he can buy anything, Ned noted. Even honor. He mentioned Tyrion, Jaime said, his voice dropping. My brother. Father, he hates him. He calls him a stunted creature. He said that if I didn't return to the Rock, he'd be forced to leave the legacy to a monster. Ned paused. His internal wiki flashed with the stats of Tyrion Lannister: intelligence, genius. Charisma, high. Liability, physical. Your father is a fool if he thinks size determines worth, Ned said quietly. I've never met your brother, but I hear he reads as much as most men drink. A sharp mind can build an empire better than a sharp sword, Jaime. If your father can't see the asset he has in Tyrion, that's his failure, not yours. Jaime looked at Ned, surprised. Most people just mock him. Most people are idiots, Ned shrugged. But the choice is yours. Do you want to be the Lord of Casterly Rock? Do you want to rule the West? I don't know what I want, Jaime admitted, looking at his hands. I joined the King's Guard to be like Arthur Dane. To be a hero. Instead, I spent 2 years listening to a madman burn people while I stood outside the door. I listened to Queen Rilla scream, "Stark!" I listened to him hurt Elia. He looked at the princess, shame burning in his eyes. We were told that we guarded the king, not the queen. That the king couldn't harm his own family. It was a lie. We were just fancy furniture for a monster. Then stop being furniture, Ned said firmly. He stepped closer to the young knight. A white cloak binds you, Jaime. It binds you to obey, to stand silent, to watch. It strips you of your voice and your will. Is that what you want? To trade one mad master for another, who knows how it will turn out? Jaime looked up, startled. Robert. Robert is a good man, but he is a king. And kings demand obedience, Ned said. You asked where you can do the most good. It isn't standing outside a door. Ned gestured to the window, toward the west. It's at Casterly Rock. My father. Jaime started. Your father rules through fear, Ned interrupted. He sacked this city to prove a point. He sent monsters to kill children. That is the legacy of House Lannister right now. Blood and gold. Ned looked him in the eye. Go home, Jaime. Take off the cloak. Become the heir your father wants, but not the man he expects. Be the Lord of Casterly Rock. You have vast lands, thousands of subjects. You have the power to feed them, to protect them, to give them justice. You can right your father's wrongs in a way no King's Guard ever could. Jaime stared at him. The idea seemed to take root, fighting against years of conditioning. You think I should leave? I think the realm needs a good Lord Lannister more than it needs another sword in a white cloak, Ned said. Redeem your honor by ruling well. By being the lion who protects the pride, not the one who eats the cubs. Jaime took a deep breath. He looked down at his white armor, seeing the stains and the scratches. Then he looked at Elia. I think you might be right, Jaime whispered. I'm tired of watching. Then don't, Ned said. But for today, for right now. I need you to hold this door one last time. Until the king arrives and we settle the fate of the princess. Can you do that? Jaime straightened his shoulders. I can. No one gets past me. Good, Ned nodded. Because I need to go yell at a king. The small council chamber. The room was too small for the egos it contained. Robert Baratheon sprawled at the head of the table, his bandaged leg elevated. He looked pale, sweating through his tunic, but the crown a hastily procured golden circlet sat on his black hair. Jonnaran and Hoster Tully sat to his right. Tywin Lannister sat to his left, looking like a statue carved from ice and gold. Ned entered and took the seat opposite Robert. Ned! Robert roared, though the volume made him wince. Finally! We've been waiting. Tywin tells me you've been busy playing City Watch Commander. Someone had to stop the looting, Ned said coolly, glancing at Tywin. Before there was no city left to rule. Details, Robert waved a hand. We won, Ned. The dragon is dead. The throne is ours. He leaned forward, his eyes darkening. Now? Where are they? Where is who? Ned asked calmly. You know who? Rhaegar's spawn. The Martell woman. Tywin says you have them locked up in the Tower of the Hand. I have them under protection, Ned corrected. Bring them out, Robert commanded. I want to see them. I want to see the end of the dragon line. To what end? Ned asked. Do you intend to execute a little girl and a grieving mother? They are Targaryens. Robert shouted, slamming his fist on the table. They are the seed of the monster who took Lyanna. As long as they live, the realm bleeds. The realm bleeds because we fought a war, Ned shot back. The war is over, Robert. Killing children isn't justice. It's vengeance. And it's weak. Weak. Robert's face turned purple. You call me weak? I call you a man about to make a mistake that history will never forgive, Ned said. He stood up, leaning over the table. I didn't march south to become a child killer. I didn't build a bridge in 4 days to watch you turn into Ares. Careful, Stark, Tywin warned softly. Ned rounded on him. Be silent, Lord Tywin. We all know what you intended. You sent the mountain to the nursery. You wanted to present Robert with broken bodies so you could wash your hands of your late arrival. Tywin's expression didn't flicker, but the air in the room grew deadly cold. I sought to secure the succession. You sought to murder a baby, Ned snapped. Well, you succeeded with the boy. Aegon is dead. But the girl lives. And she stays living. The boy is dead? Robert asked, his anger deflating slightly. Killed in the sack, Ned lied smoothly. But Rhaenys lives. And Elia lives. They cannot stay here, Robert grumbled. I won't have them in my sight. Then send them away, Jonathan interjected, playing the peacemaker. Ned offers them sanctuary in the north. They will be hostages, Robert. Insurance against Dorne. If we kill them, Dorne rises. If we keep them, Dorne kneels. Robert looked at Jon, then at Ned. He hated it. He wanted to smash every vestige of Rhaegar from the world. But he saw the look in Ned's eyes. The steel. You'd fight me for them? Robert asked, hurt leaking into his voice. For Rhaegar's runts. I'd fight you for your own honor, Ned said. Because you're my brother, and I won't let you damn yourself. Robert sighed, a heavy, rattling sound. Fine. Take them. Take the damn girl. Take the woman. Freeze them in Winterfell. Just get them out of my city. And a marriage. Jonathan ventured cautiously. To unite the claims? Rhaenys to your heir. No. Robert's rejection was instantaneous and violent. He slammed his hand onto the table, making the wine goblets jump. I will not have my son marry a dragon spawn. Robert shouted, spittle flying. I will not have that tainted blood mixed with mine. Never. I want the dragon blood gone. Ned stared at him. He felt the sheer stupidity of the statement bubbling up like bile. Tainted blood? Ned asked quietly. Yes. Dragon filth. It's madness in the veins. Robert, Ned said, his voice dangerously calm. Who was your grandmother? Robert paused, blinking. What does that have to do with anything? Answer me, Ned demanded. Who was your grandmother? Roll, Robert muttered. Roll Targaryen. Roll Targaryen. Ned shouted, his voice cracking like a whip across the room. Daughter of Aegon V. Your grandmother was a Targaryen, for God's sake. The room went deadly silent. Tywin Lannister looked mildly amused. Jonathan looked at the ceiling. You have dragon blood in you, you stupid bastard. Ned snapped, leaning over the table to get in the king's face. That's why you're the king. That's the claim. We didn't pick you just because you have a big hammer. We picked you because you had the best bloodline. Robert opened his mouth to argue, but Ned cut him off. Do you hear yourself? Dragon spawn this, dragon spawn that. You are a quarter dragon spawn yourself. Your father was half Targaryen. If dragon blood is tainted, then so are you. So is Stannis. So is Renly. Robert sat there, mouth agape. He looked stunned. No one spoke to him like that. Not anymore. Think with a calm mind, damn it. Ned shouted, slamming his hand on the table for emphasis. You're a bloody king now. Stop acting like a hurt-suitor and start acting like a ruler. Don't go spouting this kind of nonsense outside this room, or everyone will laugh at you. The king who hates his own grandmother. Is that the song you want them to sing? Robert looked at Jonaran. Jon shrugged helplessly. He looked at Hoster. Hoster was inspecting his fingernails. Robert let out a long, heavy sigh. The anger seemed to deflate out of him, punctured by Ned's logic. I hate it when you yell, Robert mumbled, looking like a chastised schoolboy. I yell when you're being an idiot, Ned said, straightening up. Fine, Robert grumbled. Fine. You win. You always win. Take the girl. Take the mother. Keep them in Winterfell. Marry her to your son, marry her to a snow bear, I don't care. Just, keep them away from me. So it is final, Ned declared, looking around the room to ensure there were no objections. Elia Martell and Princess Rhaenys will live in Winterfell under my protection. Rhaenys will marry my son, or perhaps your son in the future if you gain some sense. They are wards of the north. Done, Jonaran said, scribbling it down before Robert could change his mind. It is settled. Done, Ned said. There is also the matter of the other prisoners, Ned continued, not giving Robert time to change his mind. Varys and Pycelle are in the black cells. Jonaran frowned. Grand Maester Pycelle. He opened the gates, Ned said. He convinced Aerys that Tywin was a friend. He betrayed his king. And Varys, he's a spy who served a madman. I don't trust either of them. Keep them in irons for now, Robert agreed. And the Kingslayer? Jaime Lannister should be released from the King's Guard, Ned said firmly. Hoster Tully scoffed. Released? He killed the king he swore to protect. He should be sent to the wall. He killed a king who was about to burn this city to ash, Ned revealed. He told them about the wildfire. About Rossart. About the order to burn them all. The room went silent. He saved us all, Ned finished. He is a hero. But he is done with guarding kings. Let him go home, Robert. Let him be Lord of Casterly Rock. He has earned a life of his own. Tywin Lannister looked at Ned. For a fraction of a second, his green eyes went wide, a crack in the porcelain mask of the lion. He stared at the Stark Lord, genuinely stunned that the man who despised his methods was now handing him back his greatest desire, his son. Then, the mask slammed back down. Tywin nodded once, a curt, stiff motion. Done, Robert said, waving a hand. I don't care. Send him back to the rock. Just, get me more wine. Ned nodded. He felt a wave of exhaustion hit him. The politics were more tiring than the fighting. He stood up. Where are you going? Robert asked. We have to plan the coronation. The feast. I'm leaving, Ned said. Leaving? Robert looked up. We just got here. I am leaving this cesspit of a city, Ned said, looking at the walls with distaste. I have done my part. I won your war. I gave you a crown. Now I have business of my own. What business? My sister, Ned said softly. I have leads on where she might be. Rhaegar didn't keep her in the city. My sources tell me she's in the south. Dorne. Robert's face fell. The mention of Lyanna sucked the air out of the room. Lyanna, bring her back, Ned. Bring her home. I will, Ned promised. He turned to the door. One last thing, Jonaran said. Ned, the siege of Storm's End. Mace Tyrell still holds it. Stannis is starving. We need the army to lift the siege. Ned paused. He looked at Tywin Lannister. Ask Lord Lannister to do it, Ned said. Tywin looked up, eyebrows raised. Or Lord Tully, Ned added. Me? Hoster asked. My men are tired, Lord Stark. So are mine, Ned snapped. My men marched from the wall to the Red Keep. They fought at the bells, the trident, and the sack. They are done. He gestured to Tywin. Lord Tywin has a fresh army. 12,000 men who have done nothing but sack an unarmed city and kill a few guards. Let him ride to Storm's End. Let the Lion prove his loyalty by facing the Tyrell host. If Mace sees the Lannister banners, he'll dip his banners and surrender without a fight. Ned looked at Hoster. Or you go, Lord Tully. Stannis is to be your son-in-law. Go rescue him. It would be a nice family bonding moment. Ned looked back at Robert. I'm going to find Lyanna. Don't burn the city down while I'm gone. With that, Eddard Stark turned on his heel and walked out of the small council chamber. He left a silence behind him that was heavier than gold. Chapter 17, to the south. The Red Keep, the yard. The sun was high and brutal over King's Landing, baking the mud and blood of the city into a hard, stinking crust. Ned Stark walked out of the small council chamber, his mind already miles away. He had won the war. He had secured the throne for Robert. He had saved the innocents. But the weight in his chest hadn't lifted. If anything, it was heavier. Lyanna. He stopped in the middle of the courtyard. The Great Jan, Martin Castle, and the others were waiting for him, horses saddled, ready for the ride south. They looked eager. They wanted to cross swords with the White Bull and the Sword of the Morning. They wanted glory. Ned looked at them. Good men. Loyal men. And in the original timeline, dead men. If he took them, they might survive this time. Ned was stronger now. But the secret of the baby in the tower was a dangerous thing. A secret that could tear the realm apart just as it was being stitched back together. 7 witnesses were 5 too many. Ned made a decision. Plans have changed, Ned announced, his voice cutting through the chatter of the guards. He turned to Howland Reed. The small crannogman was checking his saddle girth, his green eyes watchful as always. Lord Reed, Ned said. You ride with me. The rest of you, you have new orders. The Great Jan frowned, his bushy eyebrows knitting together. New orders? But the King's Guard, Ned. The Sword of the Morning. You can't leave me out of that scrap. I need you for something more important than a fight, John, Ned lied smoothly. He motioned for Rickard Karstark to step forward. Lord Karstark, Ned said formally. You have the command of the northern host. The war is done here. I want you to march them home. Take them up the King's Road. See them back to their farms and their families before winter hits. They've bled enough for the south. Rickard straightened, pride warring with disappointment. It will be done, my lord. The north will be waiting for you. Good. Ned turned to the Great Jan. He placed a hand on the giant's arm. And you, John. You have the most critical task of all. Ned lowered his voice, leaning in. Princess Elia and Princess Rhaenys. They are vulnerable. Tywin Lannister watches them like a starving lion. Robert tolerates them, but his anger is a fickle thing. I need them in Winterfell. Safe. He looked the Great Jan in the eye. I need an escort that cannot be bought, cannot be frightened, and cannot be beaten. I need the Umbers. Take 500 of your best men. Escort the ladies to the north. If anyone tries to stop you, you put them in the ground. The great Yan puffed out his chest, his vanity stroked perfectly. Let them try. No one touches them, Ned. On my life. I know, Ned said. He turned to the other guards, William Dustin, Martin Castle, Theo Wool, Ethan Glover, and Mark Riswell. Go with Ricard, Ned ordered. Go home. See your families. But my lord, Martin Castle protested. You cannot ride into Dorne with just Lord Reed. He gestured to the slight form of Howland Reed. There are 3 King's Guard. The deadliest men in the world. 2 against 3? It's suicide. It's stealth, Ned corrected. We travel light. We travel fast. A large party draws attention. 2 riders are just travelers. The farewell. Before he left, Ned went back to the Tower of the Hand one last time. The solar was quiet. Jaime Lannister stood guard outside, true to his word. The Great Yan was already bellowing orders to his men to form up the escort wagons. Ned entered the room. Elia Martell looked up from her packing. She looked tired, but the terror was gone, replaced by a steely resolve. Lord Stark, she said. The council has decided. You are to reside in Winterfell, Ned explained gently but firmly. You may call yourself a guest, a hostage, or a ward, whatever term helps you sleep. The lords paramount care little for the title, only the result. You are insurance against Dorne rising. Elia stiffened slightly, clutching her hands together, but she didn't look surprised. I understand. I am a prisoner. However, Ned continued, softening his tone. You are not a prisoner in my home. You may write to your brothers and sons pair immediately. Tell Prince Doran and Prince Oberyn that they are welcome to visit Winterfell to see you and Rhaenys. I will not stop them, and no door in the north will be barred to them. Elia looked at him, her dark eyes wide with surprise. You would allow Oberyn into your castle? He will want blood. He will want to see his sister alive, Ned corrected. And I would rather face the Red Viper over a cup of wine in Winterfell than on a battlefield in the Boneway. Write to them. Tell them you are safe. Elia let out a breath she seemed to have been holding for a year. A genuine smile touched her lips. Thank you, Lord Stark. Truly. The arrangements are made, Ned told her. Lord Umber will take you north. He is loud, and he drinks too much, but he is fiercely loyal. You will be safe with him. And you, she asked. You go to find her. I do. Lyanna Stark, Elia said the name softly. There was no hatred in her voice, only sadness. If she lives, tell her. Elia trailed off. What could she say to the woman her husband had died for? The woman who had inadvertently sparked the fire that burned Elia's family? Tell her that I do not blame her, Elia said finally. We were all pieces in a game we didn't know how to play. I will, Ned promised. And you will come back? Elia asked, a flicker of fear returning. To the north? You are our shield, Lord Stark. Without you, I will come back, Ned swore. I just have to retrieve a part of my family first. He bowed to her, ruffled Rhaenys's hair, and walked out. The road south. Ned and Howland rode out of the King's Gate an hour after lunch. They wore simple cloaks, grey for Ned, moss green for Howland over their mail. No banners. No fanfare. Just 2 men on fast horses heading into the heat. They rode hard. Ned set a punishing pace. By nightfall of the first day, they were deep in the Kingswood, miles ahead of where any normal riders would be. They made camp in a small clearing. Ned built a fire while Howland tended the horses. The Crannogman was quiet, but his eyes missed nothing. He had watched Ned all day, watched the way he moved, the way the horses seemed to gain a second wind whenever Ned touched them. They sat by the fire, eating dried beef and hardtack. The flames crackled, casting long shadows against the trees. "You aren't just a soldier anymore, Ned," Howland said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement of fact. Ned looked at the fire. He poked it with a stick. Sparks flew up into the night sky. "No," Ned admitted. "I'm not." "I saw you at the Trident," Howland said softly. "I saw you move. Men don't move like that. And I saw you in the city. The gate, the ram, the mountain." Howland leaned forward, his green eyes reflecting the flames. "The swamp has magic," Howland said. "Deep magic. Ancient magic. I know the feel of the old gods. But this, what you have, it feels different. It feels like starlight." Ned sighed. He knew he couldn't hide it. Not from Howland. Not if they were going to face Arthur Dane together. "It is the magic of the Starks," Ned lied, or perhaps told a version of the truth. "The blood of the first men. It woke up in me. In the Eyrie. When I heard about Father and Brandon." "The wolf blood?" Howland asked. "Something older," Ned said. "I can see things. Feel things. Green sight." "Different," Ned said. "Watch." He looked at a rock near the fire. It was about the size of a melon, heavy and embedded in the dirt. Ned extended his hand. He didn't strain. He didn't chant. He just willed it. "Rise." The rock shuddered. Dirt fell away from its sides. Slowly, smoothly, it lifted into the air. It hovered 3 feet above the ground, rotating gently. Howland Reed, a man who had communed with the green men on the Isle of Faces, a man who knew the secrets of the bog, stared with his mouth open. "By the gods," Howland whispered. Ned clenched his fist. The rock crumbled into dust, raining down onto the fire, making it hiss. "I have witnessed wargs," Howland murmured, looking at Ned with a mix of awe and fear. "I have heard of green seers who can look through the eyes of weirwoods. But this, lifting stones? Crushing them? That's the least of it," Ned said, looking at his hand. "I can strengthen my body. I can move faster than the eye can follow. I can sense life around me." He looked at Howland. "And I can heal." Howland blinked. "Heal? I think so," Ned said. "I haven't mastered it yet. But I can feel the life energy in things. I can manipulate it." Ned's expression grew dark. The firelight cast deep hollows in his eyes. "Lyanna is dying, Howland." Howland stiffened. "You saw this?" "I feel it," Ned said, tapping his chest. "Like a candle guttering out. She is at the Tower of Joy. And she is hurt. Or sick. If I get there and I can't save her." He clenched his fist again. "I need to be ready. I need to be better." The training ground. The next morning, the journey changed. They still rode hard during the day, covering ground at a supernatural pace. But during their stops midday and evening Ned didn't rest. He trained. But he didn't swing his sword. He hunted. He would disappear into the brush, moving with the silence of a shadowcat. He would return with a rabbit, a squirrel, or a fox. Howland watched, disturbed but understanding, as Ned enacted a grim ritual. Ned sat by a stream, holding a rabbit he had caught. The animal was terrified, its heart hammering against his hand. "I'm sorry," Ned whispered to the creature. He took a small knife and made a shallow cut on the rabbit's flank. The animal squealed, thrashing. Howland flinched. "Ned!" "Quiet," Ned hissed, his brow furrowed in concentration. He placed his hand over the wound. Ned closed his eyes. He reached into the well of the force inside him. It was a pool of white light, warm and vibrant. He pushed it out, channeling it through his palm and into the rabbit. "Knit. Repair. Live." He felt the resistance of the flesh. He felt the blood vessels tearing, the cells dying. He pushed his energy against the entropy. It was exhausting. It felt like running a sprint while solving a math problem. The 10x multiplier hummed in the background. Under his hand, the bleeding stopped. The skin pulled together, pink and new. The fur didn't grow back immediately, but the wound sealed. Ned slumped back, panting. He looked at the rabbit. It was shaken, but whole. He set it down. It scampered away into the bushes. "You healed it," Howland said, his voice hushed. "In seconds." "It's small," Ned wheezed, wiping sweat from his forehead. "A rabbit is easy. A human is complex. There's so much more to go wrong." Day 4, the marches. They crossed into the Dornish marches. The terrain grew rocky and red. The heat increased. Ned's training escalated. He found a mountain goat with a broken leg, a natural injury. He spent 3 hours pouring his energy into the bone, visualizing the calcium knitting, the marrow reconnecting. He passed out twice from the strain. "You're killing yourself," Howland warned, offering him a water skin as Ned woke up, shivering despite the heat. "I have to learn," Ned croaked. "If she's bleeding, if it's childbirth." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Force heal was the rarest of abilities for a reason. It required the user to give a piece of themselves to the target. It was a transfer. "I can do it," Ned gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stand. "I have the multiplier. I learn 10 times faster. I recover 10 times faster. I can do this." Day 7, the Prince's Pass. The red mountains loomed ahead, jagged teeth tearing at the blue sky. Ned sat on a boulder, looking at a hawk he had just released. The bird had a torn wing. Now, it soared high on the thermals, screeching its defiance. Ned watched it go. He felt strong. The exhaustion was still there, but his capacity had grown. He could feel the flow of life energy now as clearly as he felt the wind. He knew how to stitch flesh, how to fuse bone, how to stem the flow of blood. "We're close," Howland said, pointing up the pass. "Another day's ride." Ned nodded. He stood up, buckling ice onto his back. The great sword felt lighter now. He looked at Howland. "3 Kingsguard," Ned said. "They won't yield." "You know that." "I know," Howland said. "They will fight to the death." "I can take them," Ned said. It wasn't arrogance. It was a calculation. "But I can't let them kill you." "Stay back, Howland. Let me handle Arthur." "I'm not a swordsman, Ned," Howland said, smiling slightly. "But the Crannogmen have their own ways of fighting. I won't get in your way. But I won't let you stand alone." Ned clasped the smaller man's shoulder. "Thank you." They mounted up. As they rode deeper into the mountains, the air grew still. The sounds of the world, the birds, the wind, the insects seemed to fade away. Chapter 18, Tower of Joy. The Red Mountains of Dorne. The heat in Dorne was a physical weight. It pressed down on the shoulders, dried the throat, and turned the air into a shimmering haze. The red rocks of the Prince's Pass radiated warmth like a kiln, baking the dust until it choked the lungs. Ned Stark wiped sweat from his brow, his leather glove coming away damp and stained with red grit. Beside him, Howland Reed sat on his lizard lion skin saddle, looking unbothered. The Crannogman was used to humidity, but the dry, baking heat of the mountains was a different beast entirely. Yet, he held his bronze spear with steady hands, his green eyes fixed on the horizon. "We're here," Howland said quietly. Ned looked up. Rising from the jagged red rocks like a lonely finger of stone was the tower. It wasn't a fortress. It was a watchtower, round and simple, built of sandstone blocks that had been scoured smooth by centuries of wind. The Tower of Joy. It looked abandoned. There were no banners flying from the parapets. No guards patrolling the ridge. Just the whistling of the wind through the pass and the screaming of a hawk high above. But at the base of the tower, standing in the shadow of the entrance, were 3 figures. They wore white cloaks that gleamed in the harsh sunlight, stark against the red stone. Their armor was white enamel, polished to a mirror sheen. They stood perfectly still, like statues placed there by the gods to guard a holy secret. Ned closed his eyes for a heartbeat, extending his senses. He felt them. Gerald Hightower. The White Bull. A presence like a granite mountain, heavy, immovable, rooted in duty. Oswell went. The Bat. Sharp, cynical, a coil of dark humor hiding a lethal edge. Arthur Dane. The Sword of the Morning. Arthur felt different. In the shimmering web of life Ned had learned to perceive, Arthur wasn't a wall or a blade. He was a star. A point of absolute, blinding focus. He was the deadliest man Ned had ever sensed. And behind them, up in the tower, Ned pushed his senses higher. He braced himself for the feeling of a dying flame, of blood and endings. But he didn't find it. He felt life. Strong, vibrant life. A woman, anxious and weary, but burning bright. And within her, a second life. A strong, steady heartbeat. She's safe, Ned realized, relief washing over him like cool water. She hasn't given birth yet. There is time. Stay close, Ned murmured to Howland. But do not engage unless I fall. I will watch, Howland promised, gripping his spear. The moss does not fight the stone, it waits. They rode closer. The hooves of their horses crunched loudly on the loose scree, echoing in the narrow pass. 50 yards from the tower, Ned reined in his horse. He swung down from the saddle, his boots hitting the dust with a heavy thud. He reached over his shoulder and unslung ice. The massive greatsword, still sheathed in wolfskin, felt comforting against his back. He walked forward. Howland followed a pace behind. The 3 Kings' Guard watched them come. They didn't draw their weapons. They didn't shout a challenge. They just watched with the calm assurance of men who had never known defeat. They were the best of the best, the white shields that guarded the dragon. Ned stopped 10 paces away. The silence stretched, heavy and taut as a bowstring. I looked for you on the trident, Ned said finally. His voice was hoarse from the dust, but steady. We were not there, Sir Gerald Hightower answered. His voice was deep, gravelly, like stones grinding together. The Lord Commander stood in the center, a tower of a man. Woe to the usurper if we had been, Sir Oswell went added, a thin, black-humoured smile touching his lips as he sharpened a whetstone against his thumb. I know, Ned said. Robert killed Rhaegar. The war is over. King's Landing has fallen. Ares is dead. The 3 knights didn't flinch. They didn't look surprised. They stood like men who had already accepted their ghosts. Sir Jaime killed him, Ned continued, watching their eyes for any flicker of reaction. He did it to save the city from wildfire. A tragedy, Arthur Dane said. His voice was sad, melodic, the voice of a poet who happened to be the greatest killer in the world. But kings die. And new kings rise. Viserys has fled to Dragonstone, Ned said, pressing the point. Queen Rilla is with him. If you are the king's guard, why are you not guarding the new king? Your vows bind you to the crown, not a tower in the middle of nowhere. Our prince wanted us here, Arthur said simply. Your prince is dead, Ned said brutally. And his wife and children are in Winterfell. I saved them from Tywin Lannister. They are safe. Arthur's eyes widened slightly. A flicker of emotion relief crossed his face. It was the first crack in the armor. You saved them. I did. Elia Martell lives. Rhaenys lives. Aegon died in the chaos, but his mother and sister are safe. Then you are a man of honor, Lord Stark, Arthur said, nodding respectfully. As Ashura said you were. The mention of Ashura hit Ned like a physical punch. He thought of her violet eyes, waiting in starfall. The promise he had made. I am here for my sister, Ned said, his voice hardening. Is she in there? She is, Gerald Hightower confirmed. I want to take her back to Winterfell, Ned said. Let me pass. We cannot do that, Gerald said, his hand drifting to the hilt of his massive greatsword. We swore a vow. To keep a brother from his sister. Ned asked. Ares is dead. Rhaegar is dead. There is no need for more blood. The King's Guard does not flee, Gerald said, his voice hardening into iron. Then or now? Then go to your new king, Ned argued. Viserys needs you. We swore a vow, Arthur repeated softly. He looked at Ned, his violet eyes sad but resolute. And now it begins. Ned looked at the finest knight who ever lived. He looked at the tower where his sister waited. He shifted his stance. He didn't summon magic. He didn't call on lightning. He summoned his training. Every hour of sweat in the courtyard, every lesson from the wiki on leverage and biomechanics, every spar with the Great Yawn. The 10x multiplier had turned his body into a weapon of precision. No, Ned said, his voice cold as the grave. Now it ends. He reached over his shoulder and gripped the hilt of ice. Shin. The sound of Valyrian steel leaving the scabbard was a song of death. Howland, Ned said without looking back. Stay back. Howland nodded and stepped back, leaning on his spear. Oswell went laughed. It was a sharp, barking sound. You think you can take 3 of the King's Guard alone, Stark? You've got the wolf blood, I'll give you that. I have more than blood, Ned said. Enough talk, Gerald Hightower roared. The Lord Commander drew his great sword. Oswell drew his long sword. They moved together, a practiced unit, flanking Ned. Arthur Dane did not move. He stood by the tower door, his hand resting on the pommel of Dawn. He watched. He was testing the waters. He was wrong to wait. Gerald attacked first. He was a powerhouse, swinging his heavy blade with the momentum of a falling tree. Ned didn't block. He didn't flinch. His perception, sharpened by the force, saw the attack unfold in agonizing detail. The shift of weight. The rotation of the hips. Ned stepped inside the arc. He moved with a speed that defied the weight of his armor. Ice flashed. Parry. Ned deflected Gerald's strike with the flat of his blade, guiding the massive sword into the dirt. In the same motion, he spun. Oswell was lunging, aiming for Ned's exposed back. Ned sensed it. He dropped to one knee. Went's sword passed harmlessly over his head. From his crouch, Ned swept ice in a low, brutal circle. The reach of the great sword was his advantage. The tip caught Oswell behind the knees, shearing through the armor joints. Went cried out, collapsing into the dust. Gerald Hightower roared, recovering his guard and bringing his sword down in a vertical chop. Ned rose. He exploded upward, driving ice up to meet the falling blade. Clang! He caught Gerald's blade on his crossguard. Then, using pure, enhanced leverage, he twisted. He shoved the white bull backward. Gerald stumbled. Ned followed the momentum. Strike! Strike! Thrust! 2 blows to batter the guard aside. The third was a clean thrust through the breastplate. Valyrian steel pierced the white enamel and the heart beneath. Gerald Hightower gasped and fell. Ned flicked the blood from ice. 10 moves. That was all it had taken. He turned to the tower. Arthur Dane stood straight. His face was pale, his violet eyes locked on Ned. He had seen it. The speed. The precision. The utter lack of hesitation. You are not the swordsman I heard of, Arthur said quietly. We all change, Ned said. He pointed the tip of ice at the knight. Step aside, Arthur. Please. I don't want to kill my future brother-in-law. Arthur's expression cracked. A flash of pain. Ashura. She loves me, Ned said. And I love her. Step away, Arthur. Let me meet my sister. I can't, Arthur said. The sadness in his voice was heartbreaking. I wish I could. But the King's Guard is my life. If I break this vow, I am nothing. He reached over his shoulder and drew Dawn. The blade was pale as milk glass, alive with light. Then, he drew a second sword from his hip, a castle-forged longsword. 2 swords. The best swordsman in the world. Come then, Lord Stark, Arthur said. Ned sighed. Get ready. He charged. This wasn't a slaughter like the others. This was a duel. Ned swung ice in a lateral cut. Arthur caught it with his steel sword, diverting the blow, and thrust Dawn at Ned's throat in the same heartbeat. Ned twisted his neck. Dawn grazed his cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. They circled. Arthur was a whirlwind. He fought with 2 blades as if he had 4 arms. He attacked from angles that shouldn't have been possible. Clang! 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 Sparks flew as ice met Dawn. Ned was on the defensive. He didn't want to give her brother's corpse to Ashura as wedding gift. Arthur's skill was overwhelming. But Ned had the 10x multiplier. Every exchange, every parry, every feint he was learning. He was downloading Arthur's rhythm. He feints high with the steel, strikes low with Dawn. He pivots on the left foot. Ned began to adapt. He stopped reacting and started predicting. Arthur feinted with the steel sword. Ned didn't bite. He stepped in, using the length of ice to control the distance. He caught the steel sword on his blade and twisted. The sheer strength behind the move, enhanced by the force but applied through perfect leverage, was too much for the castle-forged steel. Snap! Arthur's offhand sword broke near the hilt. Arthur didn't panic. He tossed the hilt aside and gripped Dawn with both hands. Now we are even, Arthur said, breathing hard. Not quite, Ned replied. He dropped his guard. He stood completely still, ice held loosely at his side. He wasn't baiting, he was reading. Arthur lunged. A thrust, straight for the heart. Perfect form. Perfect speed. But Ned was there. He sidestepped. A movement so minimal it barely stirred the dust. Dawn passed through the space he had occupied a fraction of a second before. Ned brought the pommel of ice down. He didn't cut. He struck Arthur's wrists with the heavy steel counterweight of his greatsword. Crack! Bone gave way. Arthur cried out, his grip failing. Dawn tumbled from his hands, landing in the red sand. The sword of the morning was weaponless. Arthur looked at his empty hands, then at Ned. He reached for his dagger with a shaking hand. Stop, Ned commanded. Arthur drew the dagger. I swore a vow. Ned dropped ice. He stepped inside Arthur's guard. He didn't use magic. He used a simple, brutal cross-counter he had practiced 1,000 times. His fist connected with Arthur's jaw. The impact was solid, heavy, and final. Arthur Dane's head snapped back. His eyes rolled up. He crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Silence fell over the Tower of Joy. Ned stood over the fallen knight, his chest heaving. He wiped the blood from his cheek. He looked at his hands. They were trembling, but not from fear. From the sheer intensity of the focus he had maintained. Tie him up, Ned wheezed to Howland. Use the good rope. Howland stepped forward, eyes wide. You defeated him. Without a scratch. He scratched me, Ned pointed to his cheek. Ned picked up ice. He sheathed it. Then he walked over to Dawn. He picked up the pale blade. It was light, humming with a warmth that felt like morning sunlight. He walked back to Arthur and stuck the sword in the sand next to his head. "Sleep well," Ned whispered. He turned to the tower. There was no sound from above. No screaming. Just the wind. But Ned could feel it. The life inside. It was waiting. He walked to the door of the tower. He placed his hand on the wood. "She's there. She's safe." Ned took a deep breath, steeling himself for a different kind of battle. He pushed the door open and began the long climb up the stairs. Chapter 19, The Blue Rose. The room at the top of the world. The stairs of the Tower of Joy spiraled upward, a narrow throat of stone that seemed to swallow the light. Ned climbed them slowly. Every step was heavy, not with fatigue, but with dread. He had fought armies. He had faced the mountain. He had dismantled the king's guard. But this walking through a wooden door to see his little sister felt like the hardest thing he had ever done. He reached the landing. The door was heavy oak, banded with iron. He pushed it open. The room was circular, dominated by a large window that looked out over the red mountains. The air inside was thick, smelling of lavender, old rushes, and the metallic tang of fear. A maidservant stood by the window, wringing her hands. When she saw Ned blood-spattered, grim-faced, carrying a sword that looked like it could cleave the world, she let out a small squeak and backed against the wall. But Ned ignored her. His eyes were fixed on the bed. Lyanna Stark lay there. She looked small. In Ned's memory, Lyanna was a force of nature. She was the girl who rode like a centaur, who poured wine over Benion's head at feasts, who laughed louder than anyone in Winterfell. She was wild beauty and iron will. The woman in the bed was a ghost of that girl. Her face was gaunt, her cheekbones sharp enough to cut. Her skin was pale, save for the fever flush high on her cheeks. Her belly was swollen, a mound of life beneath the thin linen sheet. She was awake. Her grey eyes, stark eyes, were fixed on the door. When she saw him, her breath hitched. "Ned," she whispered. Her voice was thin, a dry leaf scraping on stone. Ned crossed the room in 3 long strides. He dropped to his knees beside the bed, eyes clattering to the floor, forgotten. "I'm here, Lya," he choked out. "I'm here." Lionel looked at him, really looked at him, as if trying to confirm he wasn't a fever dream. She saw the grief in his face, the lines that war had carved there. Her face crumbled. "Ned," she sobbed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The tears came then, a flood that had been held back for months. She tried to sit up, reaching for him, but she was too weak. Ned leaned in, wrapping his arms around her carefully, mindful of the child. She buried her face in his shoulder, weeping with the raw, ugly intensity of a child who has broken something precious. "Father," she gasped between sobs. "Brandon. It's my fault. It's all my fault." "Shhh," Ned soothed, stroking her hair. It was matted and sweaty. "No. No, it isn't." "It is," she cried, clutching his cloak. "I left. I didn't tell anyone. I thought I could just write a letter later. And then Ares, and Brandon." "Listen to me," Ned said, pulling back gently so he could look her in the eye. He used a sliver of the force, projecting calm, wrapping her hysteria in a blanket of warmth. "It was not your fault that the king was mad. It was not your fault that Brandon was hot-headed. It was a tragedy of errors, Lya. Everyone played a part." He wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "We failed you, too. Father tried to sell you to Robert like a broodmare. We didn't listen when you said you didn't want him. We didn't understand your heart. And yes, you should have told us. You should have trusted us. But we are here now." "They're dead," Lyanna whispered, the guilt eating her alive. Because of me. They are dead, Ned agreed softly. We can grieve for them. We will grieve for them for the rest of our lives. But we cannot bring them back. We have to look forward. For you. For the child. Lyanna shuddered. She looked down at her stomach with a complicated expression. Fear? Love? Resentment? It was a tangle of emotions Ned couldn't quite read. The child, she murmured. She leaned back against the pillows, the crying jag passing, leaving her exhausted. The maid, sensing the danger had passed, crept forward with a cup of water. Ned took it and held it to Lyanna's lips. She drank greedily. Tell me, Ned said quietly, setting the cup down. Tell me what happened. The truth. Not the songs Robert sings. Lyanna laughed, a weak, bitter sound. Robert's songs. He thinks Rugger kidnapped me at sword point, doesn't he? That I was screaming for help. He does. I went willingly, Lyanna admitted, staring at the ceiling. At first. It started at Harrenhal, she said, her eyes drifting back to the past. The tourney. You remember? I remember, Ned said. The night of the laughing tree. Lyanna smiled faintly. That was me. Ned blinked. You. I wanted to teach those squires a lesson, she said, a spark of the old wolf blood flaring. For Howland. They beat him. So I found some mismatched armor. I painted the shield. I rode against them. And you won, Ned said, impressed despite himself. But, the king sent Rugger to find the mystery knight. He found me, Lyanna said. I was hiding in the woods, trying to get the armor off. He found me half-dressed, struggling with a gorget. She closed her eyes. I thought he would arrest me. Take me to his father. Instead, he laughed. He said I was the bravest thing he'd ever seen. He helped me out of the armor. He sat with me and we talked. Not about crowns or kingdoms. About songs. About freedom. He charmed you, Ned said. He listened to me, Lyanna corrected. Robert never listened. Robert looked at me and saw a trophy. Rugger looked at me and saw me. So you ran away with him. He wrote to me. After the tourney. He told me he couldn't stop thinking about me. He told me Elia was sickly, that she couldn't give him another child, that their marriage was political ash. He promised me a life where I wouldn't be just a lady in a castle. He promised we would be free. Her face darkened. The fond memory twisted into something uglier. We married, she whispered. Before a weirwood tree. He said he wanted it done right, by my gods and his. And then? Ned asked. Then, the songs stopped, Lyanna said. Her voice went cold. And the prophecy started. Prophecy. The prince that was promised, Lyanna recited, the words sounding foreign and heavy on her tongue. The song of ice and fire. The dragon must have 3 heads. She looked at Ned, her eyes wide and haunted. He didn't love me, Ned. Not really. He loved a prophecy. He loved what I represented. Ice-stark blood. He was obsessed with it. He had books, scrolls, ancient things. He would read them while I slept. He would wake me up in the middle of the night to measure my belly, to talk about signs and comets. She shuddered. He needed a 3rd head for his dragon. Elia couldn't give it to him. So he found me. I wasn't a wife. I was a vessel. A womb to breed a savior. Ned felt a surge of anger toward the dead prince. Rhaegar Targaryen, the melancholic hero, the misunderstood artist. In reality, he was just another Targaryen madman, chasing ghosts while the real world burned. When did you realize? Ned asked. When the war started, Lyanna said. When we heard about Brandon. I wanted to go home. I wanted to go to King's Landing and beg Ares for mercy. Rhaegar, he wouldn't let me. He kept you prisoner. He said it was for my safety, Lyanna said bitterly. He said the child was too important. The third head must be born. He brought me here, to this tower in the middle of nowhere. And he left me with his king's guards. To protect you, Ned said. To keep me in, Lyanna corrected. They weren't guards, Ned. They were jailers. Polite, honorable jailers in white cloaks, but jailers all the same. I tried to leave. Once. Sir Oswell stopped me at the door. He was smiling, but he had his hand on his sword. He said, "The prince commanded you stay, my lady." Ned's grip on the bedsheet tightened until his knuckles cracked. So he left you here to rot while he went to play soldier. He went to save his dynasty, Lyanna said tiredly. He kissed my forehead and told me that when he returned, the world would be changed. That our daughter would save everyone. He didn't return, Ned said. I know, Lyanna whispered. I felt it. A few days ago. A cold feeling in my heart. Like a string snapping. She looked at Ned. He's dead, isn't he? Robert killed him. Yes, Ned said. At the Trident. Good, Lyanna said. The word hung in the air. He ruined everything, she whispered. For a prophecy. For a dream. I loved him, Ned. I really did. But in the end. I think I hated him more. She winced, a spasm of pain crossing her face. Her hand went to her belly. The baby, Ned said, alarmed. Is it coming? Soon, Lyanna gasped, relaxing as the contraction passed. Not today. Maybe tomorrow. Or the next day. The maester. Rhaegar didn't leave a maester. Just Willa. She gestured to the maid. She's a midwife. That's not enough, Ned said. You look like death. Lyanna managed a weak smile. I feel like it. The fever comes and goes. We will get you through this, Ned said fiercely. I have learned things, Lya. Ways to help. He thought of his training in the mountains. The rabbits. The goats. The flow of life energy. He would keep her alive. He would force her to live if he had to. The King's Guard, Lyanna asked, looking toward the window. Arthur, he was kind to me. He brought me water. He sat with me when the nightmares came. He was the only one who seemed to care about me, not just the prophecy. But he said he couldn't let me leave. His vows. Arthur is alive, Ned said. Lyanna's eyes widened. Alive? But, the fighting. I defeated them, Ned said. Gerald and Oswell are dead. They wouldn't yield. But Arthur. I knocked him out. He's tied up downstairs. Relief washed over Lyanna's face. Thank the gods. He is a good man, Ned. Just, trapped. Like I was. He's safe, Ned promised. And so are you. He stood up, pacing the small room. He needed to make a plan. The war was over, but the danger wasn't. We stay here until the baby comes, Ned decided. Willa can handle the birth. I will, assist. You. Lyanna raised an eyebrow. You faint at the sight of blood, Ned. I've seen enough blood in the last year to drown a kingdom, Ned said grimly. I don't faint anymore. And I have other skills now. What skills? Trust me, Ned said. After the birth, once you are strong enough to travel, we go home. Home, Lyanna whispered the word like a prayer. Winterfell. Winterfell, Ned confirmed. No more south. No more dragons. No more politics. Just the north. And the baby? Lyanna asked, her voice trembling. Robert, if he finds out. Robert will never know, Ned said. The baby is mine. Lyanna blinked. Yours. My bastard, Ned said, formulating the lie that would save a life. Born of a wartime romance. Willa here. He looked at the maid, who nodded frantically, understanding the game. She is the mother. Or maybe Ashura. We'll decide the story later. But the boy or girl returns to Winterfell as a Stark. He has Targaryen blood, Lyanna warned. Robert will hunt him. He has Stark blood, Ned countered. And he will be under my roof. Let Robert hunt. He'll find nothing but snow. And if war knocks on the north, then there will be 20,000 swords between Robert and the baby. He walked back to the bed and took her hand again. You are safe, Lya. The pack survives. Lyanna squeezed his hand. Her grip was weak, but it was there. The lone wolf dies, she whispered the old adage. But the pack survives, Ned finished. He sat with her as the sun went down, casting long red shadows across the floor. He told her about Benyon, about the bridge he built, about the new glass gardens he planned to construct. He talked about boring, mundane things to anchor her to the world. Downstairs, the greatest knight in the world was tied to a post, defeated by a man who shouldn't have been able to touch him. Outside, the world was changing. But in the tower, for the first time in a year, there was peace. Chapter 20, Tower of Joy, 2. The Tower of Joy, the upper chamber. The shadows in the room were lengthening, stretching like long, dark fingers across the stone floor. The heat of the Dornish day was beginning to break, replaced by the swift, dry chill of the desert evening. Ned sat by the window, watching the play of light on the red mountains. Lyanna lay in the bed, exhausted by her confession and the weight of the memories she had dragged into the light. There was a soft knock on the doorframe. Howland Reed stepped inside. The Crannogman had washed the dust of the road from his face, though his moss-green cloak still smelled faintly of horse and swamp. He moved with the quiet grace of a man who knew how to walk on water. He stopped at the foot of the bed, looking at the woman who had once been the Knight of the Laughing Tree. It has been a while, my lady, Howland said softly. Since we last saw each other. Lyanna turned her head. A genuine smile, weak but warm, broke through the mask of pain on her face. Howland. The little Crannogman who fought 3 squires. And the she-wolf who saved him, Howland replied, bowing low. You look different without the mismatched armor. And you look taller, Lyanna teased, her voice raspy. Or maybe I'm just lying down. Howland chuckled. I think the mountains just make me look big by comparison. In the neck, the trees make everyone look small. Here, I am a giant among the rocks. Come, sit, Lyanna patted the edge of the mattress. Howland sat, and for the next hour, the war didn't exist. There were no dragons, no rebellions, no prophecies. Just 3 friends talking about home. Howland told stories of the journey, embellishing Ned's grumpiness and making Lyanna giggle until she had to hold her swollen belly. As the sun dipped below the peaks, painting the sky in violent shades of purple and orange, Ned stood up. I need to leave you for a bit, Ned said. Lyanna looked panic-stricken for a second. Where? Just downstairs, Ned reassured her, squeezing her hand. And to find food. We can't eat sand, and the supplies in the tower are low. Howland, keep her company. Keep her smiling. I will tell her about the time you tried to dance with Ashura Dane and stepped on her foot, Howland promised. I did not step on her foot, Ned lied, his ears turning pink. It was a complex Dornish maneuver. Go, Lyanna said, shooing him. Bring us something that doesn't taste like salted beef. The base of the tower. Ned descended the spiral stairs. The air grew cooler as he went down, the stone retaining the night's chill. He walked out into the twilight. Arthur Dane was sitting against the wall of the tower. His hands were still bound, but he looked alert. His violet eyes tracked Ned as he emerged. Ned walked over to him. He drew his dagger. Arthur didn't flinch. He just watched. Ned reached down and cut the ropes binding Arthur's wrists. "Lord Stark?" Arthur asked, rubbing his chafed wrists. "The war is over, Sir Arthur," Ned said, sheathing the dagger. "And I don't like keeping men tied up like dogs." "You aren't a prisoner." Arthur stood up. He was stiff, but his movements were still fluid and dangerous. He looked at Dawn, which was still stuck in the sand where Ned had left it. He didn't reach for it. "You could have killed me," Arthur said. "When I was down. You could have finished it." "I could have," Ned agreed. "But I have seen enough death." The Trident was a river of blood. King's Landing was a slaughterhouse. "I'm tired of it, Arthur. And if I kill you, your sister will be mad at me. Imagine showing her brother's corpse as a wedding gift to the bride." He looked at the knight, measuring him. "Besides, let the wounds heal for a while before we start ripping them open again. Even if we don't start another war, there will always be someone stupid enough to try. The realm will bleed again. It always does." Ned stepped closer. "You swore vows, Arthur." "To the king." "To the king's guard." "For life," Arthur said automatically. "And what of the vows of a knight?" Ned asked. "The vows you took before you put on the white cloak? To protect the weak. To defend the innocent. To be just." Arthur looked away, his jaw tightening. "Which takes priority?" Ned pressed. "The vow to a madman who burns people alive? The vow to a prince who chases prophecy at the cost of thousands of lives? Or the vow to the helpless?" He pointed up at the tower window, where a faint light was glowing. "There is a baby up there. Or there will be soon. And a terrified woman. She told me you were kind to her. That you protected her from the worst of her isolation." "She is the mother of the prince's child," Arthur said. "It was my duty." "It was your humanity," Ned corrected. "You cared. I saw it in your eyes when we fought. You didn't want to be here. You wanted to be doing something right." Ned sighed, looking out at the darkening desert. "Use the life I gave you, Arthur. Don't throw it away on a lost cause. Defend Renus. Defend the baby Lyanna carries. Be the shield that guards the realms of men, not the shield that guards a dynasty of ghosts." Arthur stood in silence for a long time. The wind whistled through the pass, stirring his white cloak. Arthur looked toward the bodies of his sworn brothers. "They cannot stay like this. The carrion birds, they deserve the earth." Ned said. "They do." They found 2 rusty spades in the small stable behind the tower. The ground was hard-packed red clay and stone, but neither man complained. They worked side by side in the fading light, the Lord of Winterfell and the Sword of the Morning, digging graves for the last of the old guard. It was grueling work. Ned used the force subtly, loosening the earth ahead of their spades, breaking the larger rocks that blocked their way. Arthur, if he noticed the unnatural ease with which the ground gave way, said nothing. He dug with a grim, mechanical intensity. When the graves were deep enough, they lowered the bodies. Gerald Hightower, the White Bull. Oswell Went, the dark humorist. Arthur stood over them. He didn't pray to the 7. He simply looked down. "They stood," Arthur whispered. "When the world broke, they stood. They died for a promise. I live for one." He looked at Ned, his eyes heavy with grief. "I wonder which is harder." "Living," Ned answered immediately. "Dying is easy, Arthur. Living with the ghosts, that's the hard part. But it's the only way to fix things." Arthur retrieved his cloak and clasped it back around his shoulders. "I will think on your words, Stark. That's all I ask." They filled the graves and marked them with heavy red stones. Arthur placed his hand on the cairn of the Lord Commander for a moment, a silent farewell to a life that was gone forever. He turned to Ned, wiping dust and sweat from his face. "Thank you." Ned nodded. He clapped Arthur on the shoulder. It was a firm, soldierly grip. Then he turned to look at the landscape. He clapped Arthur on the shoulder. It was a firm, soldierly grip. Then he turned to look at the landscape. "Now," Ned said, changing the subject. "I need to hunt. And all I see is rocks and sand. How did you three survive out here for months?" Arthur blinked, the shift in tone catching him off guard. "There is a goat track to the east. About a mile out. The mountain goats come down to drink at a spring in the canyon floor. And there are sand hares in the scrub." "East," Ned nodded. "Thank you. Take a bow," Arthur advised. "The goats are skittish." "I have my ways," Ned said enigmatically. "The hunter in the dark." Ned moved through the desert night like a shadow. He didn't take a bow. He didn't take a spear. He took only a knife and the humming, vibrant energy of the force. The cooling sands felt different under his boots than the moss of the north or the cobblestones of the capital. The life here was sparse, hardy, and stubborn. He found the canyon Arthur had mentioned. It was a narrow slash in the earth, shadowed and cool. A trickle of water ran through the center, surrounded by tough, thorny brush. He sensed them before he saw them. Life signatures. 3 mountain goats were drinking at the pool. They were alert, their ears twitching, muscles coiled to spring up the vertical rock walls at the slightest sound. Ned crouched behind a boulder 50 yards away. In the old days, he would have needed a crossbow and a lot of luck. Now? He reached out with his mind. He didn't grab their bodies, he grabbed their motion. He visualized a cage of air around the largest goat. The goat bleated, startled, trying to leap. It couldn't. It was frozen in mid-air, legs thrashing against an invisible hold. The other 2 scattered, vanishing into the darkness in seconds. Ned walked forward calmly, keeping the mental grip tight. The goat panicked, its eyes rolling, but Ned held it firm. He reached the animal. It was a good size enough to feed them for days. But food wasn't the only reason he was here. Ned placed his hand on the goat's flank. He could feel the heart hammering against the ribs. He could feel the heat, the vitality. Lina is weak, Ned thought. The birth will be hard. Her body has been ravaged by grief and isolation. I need reserves. He had practiced healing on the journey down, giving his own energy to rabbits and birds. But that was draining. It left him weak. If complications arose during the birth, if Lina started to bleed out, Ned couldn't risk passing out from exhaustion. He needed a battery. He needed life drain. It was a dark technique. The Jedi forbade it. The Sith abused it. But Ned Stark was neither. He was a man trying to save his sister. Apologies, Ned projected to the animal. He opened the channels in his mind. Instead of pushing energy out, he pulled it in. He visualized the vitality of the goat, the red, pulsing strength of it flowing into his hand, up his arm, and pooling in his core. The goat stopped struggling. Its bleats turned into soft whimpers. It didn't feel pain, exactly. It felt, fading. Like falling asleep in the snow. Ned felt the rush. It was instantaneous and overwhelming. A surge of raw power, wild and earthy, slammed into his system. But with it came something else. A shadow. A whisper in the back of his mind that tasted of ash and absolute power. More, the shadow hissed. Take it all. Why stop at goats? You could be a god. The corruption curled around his heart, cold and seductive. It was the dark side, eager to claim a new vessel. But Ned Stark had made a deal with a higher power. Deep in the core of his soul, a golden light flared. It wasn't the Force, it was something older, something amused. It felt like warm molasses and infinite wisdom. Not today, son, the voice seemed to echo. The golden light surged outward, meeting the encroaching shadow. It didn't fight, it simply dissolved it. The corruption hissed and evaporated like mist in the morning sun. The addictive, maddening edge of the power was scrubbed clean, leaving only pure, unaligned energy. Ned gasped, his eyes flying open. The shadow was gone. The whisper was silenced. He was left with a reservoir of clean fuel, filtered by the blessing of the entity that had sent him here. Immunity, Ned whispered, shaking his head to clear the dizziness. Handy. The goat went limp, unconscious but alive. Its breathing was shallow. Ned withdrew his hand. He felt electric. He felt like he could run back to Winterfell without stopping. Thank you, Ned whispered. He drew his knife. He made it quick. A clean cut to the throat. He dressed the carcass efficiently, his hands moving with the precision of a surgeon. He repeated the process with 2 large sand hairs he found in the brush. Capture. Drain. Cleanse. Kill. When he was done, he stabbed the carcasses with his knife in specific patterns simulating spear thrusts and lucky throws. He rubbed dirt into the wounds. Can't have Arthur asking why the goats died of exhaustion, Ned muttered. He slung the game over his shoulder and began the walk back. The feast of the survivors. When Ned returned to the tower, the fire was already crackling in the hearth of the lower room. Arthur Dane was feeding sticks to the flames. He looked up as Ned entered, eyeing the goat and the hares. You are a better hunter than I thought, Arthur commented, looking at the knife wounds. To get that close to a mountain goat with a knife, you must move like the wind. The wind was in my favor, Ned deflected, dropping the catch on the table. Howland came down the stairs. Lyanna is resting. She drank some water. He looked at the food. Ah! Meat. Finally. Ned took charge of the cooking. He skinned the hares and quartered the goat with the ease of a man who had spent his youth fostering in the Vale, where hunting was a way of life. He skewered the meat and set it over the fire. Soon, the smell of roasting goat and dripping fat filled the tower, chasing away the scent of dust and old blood. They ate in a strange, companionable silence. It was a tableau that would have baffled any historian. The Lord of Winterfell, the Lord of Greywater Watch, and the Lord Commander of the King's Guard, or whatever Arthur was now, sitting on the floor of a tower in Dorne, sharing a meal. Ned tore a leg off a hare and handed it to Arthur. Eat, Ned said. You'll need your strength. For what? Arthur asked, taking the meat. For the future, Ned replied. Whatever it brings. He cut a prime slice of the goat meat, placed it on a wooden platter, and added some bread. Then he prepared a smaller plate with a portion of the hare and some soft cheese they had found in the stores. Willa will need to eat too, Ned said, looking at the ceiling. She needs her strength if she's to help with the birth. He picked up both plates. I'll take these up, Ned said. He walked up the stairs, feeling the energy he had harvested humming in his veins. It was a dark secret, carrying the life of another creature inside him, but as he pushed open the door and saw Lyanna's pale face turn toward him, he knew he would drain 1,000 goats if it meant keeping her warm. Dinner, Ned announced, forcing a cheerful smile. Roasted goat à la Stark. It's a bit chewy, but it beats starvation. He handed the smaller plate to Willa, who was hovering by the window. The midwife took it with a grateful nod, her eyes tired but relieved to see fresh meat. Thank you, my lord, Willa whispered, retreating to her corner to eat. Ned sat by the bed. He fed Lyanna small bites, watching her eat. Every swallow seemed to give her a little more color. It's good, she whispered. It is, Ned agreed. He placed his hand over hers. Under the skin, he pushed a tiny, microscopic thread of the stolen energy into her. Just enough to ease her pain. Just enough to help her sleep. Rest now, Lya, Ned said. I'm here. We're all here. She closed her eyes, her breathing deepening into sleep. Ned stayed by the window, watching the stars wheel overhead. He touched the force, feeling the vast, indifferent universe around him. He was a small man in a big world, playing with powers he barely understood. But he had food in his belly, a sword at his hip, and a promise to keep. I will save her, Ned vowed to the night. Whatever the cost. Chapter 21, A Song of Ice and Fire. The long wait. The next 2 days passed in a blur of heat and anxiety, but for Ned Stark, they were days of intense, focused preparation. The Tower of Joy, usually a place of silence and wind, hummed with a tension that was tighter than a bowstring. But inside the upper chamber, the air felt different. It felt charged. Ned spent every waking moment with Lyanna. He sat by her bedside, holding her hand, telling her stories of Winterfell, of Benyen's pranks, of the glass gardens he planned to build, of the snow that blanketed the Wolf's Wood in silence. He talked until his voice was hoarse, anchoring her to the world of the living. But beneath the conversation, he was working. He was a battery. He had stored the vitality of the mountain goats and hares in a mental reservoir, a pool of raw, uncolored life energy. Now, he was carefully decanting it into his sister. He didn't just dump it in, that would be dangerous. He wove it into her system. He strengthened the walls of her heart. He saturated her blood with vitality. He reinforced the muscles that would soon be tested to their limit. Lyanna didn't know what he was doing, but she felt the effects. The pallor of her skin faded, replaced by a healthy flush. The dark circles under her eyes lightened. The fever that had plagued her for weeks receded, cooled by the unnatural resilience Ned was pouring into her. You make me feel stronger, Lyanna whispered on the second night, looking at her hand. I felt so brittle before you came. Like dried leaves. Now, I feel like I can breathe again. You're a Stark, Ned smiled, squeezing her fingers. We're made of iron and ice. Hard to break. And you're warm, she noted, pressing his hand to her cheek. Like the hot springs. Downstairs, Arthur Dane paced. The Sword of the Morning walked the perimeter of the tower like a caged tiger. He cleaned Dawn 3 times a day. He scanned the horizon for enemies that weren't coming. Howland Reed watched him, whittling a piece of weirwood he had brought from the north. She looks better, Howland told the knight as Arthur passed him for the 100th time. Since Ned arrived. The color is back in her cheeks. Arthur stopped. He looked up at the window. Your lord, he has a touch. I have seen healers work for days to achieve less than he has done in hours. Ned is full of surprises, Howland said simply. It began at dawn on the 3rd day. Ned was dozing in the chair when Lyanna gasped. Her body went rigid, her fingers digging into the sheets. Ned. He was awake instantly. I'm here. It's time, she groaned through gritted teeth. The water. Willa, who had been sleeping on a pallet at the foot of the bed, was up in a flash. The midwife took one look at Lyanna, checked under the sheets, and nodded grimly. The water has broken, Willa announced. She turned to Ned. My lord, you must leave. Ned hesitated. I can help. I can. You are a man, Willa said sternly, pushing him toward the door. You will be in the way. Boil water if you want to be useful. Or just wait outside. But this room belongs to women now. Ned looked at Lyanna. She was breathing in shallow gasps, but her eyes were clear. She wasn't the terrified, dying girl he had feared to find. She was scared, yes, but she was strong. The energy he had given her was holding. Go, Ned, she whispered, gripping the bed frame as a contraction hit. I'll be brave. I know you will, Ned said. He placed his hand on her forehead for 1 second, pushing a final, stabilizing pulse of calm into her mind. "I'll be right outside the door. I'm not leaving you." He walked out. Willa slammed the heavy oak door behind him. The sound of the latch clicking into place felt like a sentence, but Ned felt a strange sense of peace. "She's ready," he thought. "I made sure of it." The hallway was narrow and dim. Ned leaned his back against the rough stone wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor. He closed his eyes. He couldn't see, but he could feel. He felt Lionna's pain. It was sharp, intense, a jagged red spike in the force, but it wasn't the dull, fading grey of death. It was the fire of life. Heavy footsteps echoed on the stairs. Arthur Dane appeared, followed by Howland. "Is it happening?" Arthur asked, looking at the closed door. "It is," Ned said, not opening his eyes. Arthur sat down on the top step, resting his elbows on his knees. He looked anxious. "I have heard, sometimes the fever takes them. Even when they seem strong." "Not this time," Ned said with absolute certainty. "How can you be sure?" "Because she's a wolf," Ned said. "And wolves don't go down easy." They waited. Hours bled into one another. The sun rose higher, heating the stone of the tower until it was an oven. From inside the room, the sounds of the struggle drifted out. Groans. Sharp cries. The murmur of Willa's voice giving instructions. To Arthur and Howland, it was just noise. To Ned, it was a tactical readout. He monitored Lionna's aura. Every time the pain spiked, he saw her energy dip, but then it would bounce back, fueled by the reserves he had stored in her cells. "She's holding," Ned realized. "She's not even close to the edge." Midday came and went. The screaming intensified. "Push, my lady!" Willa's voice came through the wood. "Push!" Lionna screamed. It was a sound of pure effort, of muscles straining to their limit. Arthur flinched. He gripped the hilt of his dagger until his knuckles were white. Ned just breathed. He reached out with his mind, brushing against the wood of the door. He didn't transfer more energy, she didn't need it, but he sent a feeling. Presence. Solidarity. "I am here, Laya. We are all here." And then, the scream changed. It broke. Silence. A heavy, thick silence that lasted for a heartbeat. Then, "Wah-ya-ya-ya!" A strong, lusty cry. The sound of new lungs filling with air. Arthur let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for hours. "The baby." "The baby," Ned confirmed, a smile breaking across his face. He waited. He listened for the other sound. The sound of the mother fading. The silence he had dreaded in his nightmares. But it didn't come. Instead, he heard a soft, tired laugh. Lionna's laugh. "Oh," he heard her whisper through the door. "Oh, look at him." Ned stood up. His legs were stiff, but his heart was light. The door latch clicked. Willa opened the door. Her apron was stained, and she looked exhausted, but she was smiling. "My lord," Willa said. "A son. And the mother is well?" "She's well." Arthur asked, standing up. "Tired," Willa said. "Worn out. But alive. Stronger than I expected, truth be told." "She bled, but it stopped quickly." Ned nodded. The clotting factor, he thought. The healing boost worked. "Can I see her?" Ned asked. "She is asking for you," Willa said, stepping aside. Ned entered the room. It smelled of blood and sweat and iron, but it didn't smell of death. Lionna was propped up against the pillows. She looked exhausted, her hair matted, her face pale, but her eyes were bright. She was weak, but it was the weakness of exertion, not the weakness of the grave. "Ned," she whispered, turning her head. Ned walked to the bed. He sat down on the edge, careful not to jostle her. "You did it," Ned said softly. We did it, she corrected. I felt you, Ned. Outside the door. I felt. I don't know. Warmth. Ned smiled. He took her hand. It was cool, but not cold. Her pulse was steady. I told you I wasn't leaving. He looked at the bundle in her arms. The baby was wrapped in white linen. He was small, red-faced, and currently sleeping. He had a tuft of dark fuzz on his head. He looks like a Stark, Ned observed. He does, Lyanna agreed, tracing the baby's brow with her finger. He has father's chin, I think. Willa moved to the basin to clean up the linens. Arthur Dane stood in the doorway, hesitant to intrude, but watching with a look of profound relief. Ned saw his chance. He kept holding Lyanna's hand. He shifted his body slightly to block the view from the door. He didn't need the heavy drain he had prepared for. She was stable. But she was sore, bruised, and exhausted. He concentrated. He visualized the minor tears, the bruising, the fatigue toxins in her blood. He pushed a gentle stream of energy into her palm. It wasn't enough to cause a visible glow or a sudden miracle that would alert Arthur or Willa. It was just a subtle acceleration of her natural recovery. Lyanna sighed, her shoulders relaxing. The lines of pain around her eyes smoothed out. That's better, she murmured, her eyelids drooping. Much better. Ned released the flow. He kept holding her hand, just as a brother. Willa, Ned called out softly. The midwife turned. Take the babe for a moment, Ned said. Let him be cleaned properly. And let the mother rest her arms. Willa nodded. She came over and gently took the infant from Lyanna. Come, little prince. Let's get you washed. Lyanna watched the baby go, anxiety flaring for a moment before she looked at Ned and settled. He's safe, Ned promised. What do we call him? Lyanna asked, her voice sleepy now that the adrenaline was fading. Rhaegar, he had names. Iman. Jaehaerys. Dragon names. We can't use dragon names, Ned said, keeping his voice low so only she could hear. Robert is king. He hates the dragons, Lya. If he hears a Targaryen name. Lyanna shivered. He would kill him. He won't get the chance, Ned said fiercely. But the boy needs a name that protects him. A name that belongs in the north. He looked at the baby in Willa's arms. The boy who would be raised in the snow. Jon, Ned said. Lyanna blinked. Jon. After Jonaran, Ned explained. He is a good man. He taught me honor. He saved the rebellion. Jon, Lyanna tested the name on her tongue. It was simple. Solid. Jon Stark. Jon Stark, Ned agreed. I will claim him. I will say he is mine. Born of, well, we'll figure that out. Maybe Willa. Maybe Ashura. Ashura, Lyanna smiled faintly. You liked her. I did more than like, Ned admitted. And we will see her on the way home. Jon Stark, Lyanna repeated. She looked at Ned. You would stain your honor for me? For him. My honor is my life, Ned said. But my family is my heart. I would lie to the old gods themselves to keep you both safe. He leaned in and kissed her forehead. Sleep now, Lya. You've earned it. Lyanna closed her eyes. Within moments, her breathing evened out. She was asleep. Safe. Alive. Ned stood up. He walked over to Willa, who had finished swaddling the baby in fresh cloth. Let me hold him, Ned said. Willa handed the baby over. Ned held the weight of the future in his arms. Jon Snow. Aegon Targaryen. The prince that was promised. The baby opened his eyes. They were dark grey, almost black. Stark eyes. Hello, little wolf, Ned whispered. Arthur Dane stepped into the room. He had removed his helm. He looked at the sleeping Lyanna, then at Ned holding the child. "He lives," Arthur said quietly. "He lives," Ned confirmed. "And so does she." Arthur let out a long breath. "Then the vow is kept." "The vow has changed, Arthur," Ned said, turning to face the knight. "The prince is dead. The king is dead. This boy, he is the last of them. But he cannot be a dragon. Not if he wants to survive." Arthur looked at the baby. "He is the true king." "He is a baby," Ned corrected. "And he needs a father, not a crown. I will be his father. I will raise him in Winterfell. He will be safe there." "And me?" Arthur asked. "Where do I fit in this?" "You are the uncle," Ned said with a small smile. "The quiet uncle who teaches him how to swing a sword. Who watches the shadows." Arthur nodded slowly. He looked at Dawn leaning in the corner. Ned looked out the window. The sun was setting over the red mountains, painting the world in gold and crimson. The war was done. The tragedy was averted. He had won. Chapter 22, Starfall. The morning after. The sun rose over the Tower of Joy, casting long shadows across the red rocks. Inside the upper chamber, the air was calm for the first time in months. Ned sat in a wooden chair by the bed, the newborn resting in the crook of his arm. John Stark, for that was his name in this room, if nowhere else, was awake, his dark grey eyes staring up at his uncle with solemn curiosity. "He has a grip like the Great Yawn," Ned murmured, wiggling his index finger, which the baby was currently trying to crush with a surprisingly strong fist. "Look at that! He's trying to break my hand." Lyanna laughed softly from the bed. She looked tired, her face pale against the pillows, but the haunted look was gone. She was a mother now, and the fierce protectiveness of the she-wolf had replaced the fear of the prisoner. "He's a wolf, Ned. He knows he has to be strong." Ned smiled, a genuine, unguarded expression that he rarely wore. He tickled the baby's chin lightly with his thumb. John gurgled, a small bubble of spit forming on his lips. "Hello, little wolf," Ned whispered, bringing the baby closer. "I'm going to teach you how to ride. And how to swing a sword. And how to ignore Benyon when he suggests stupid ideas." The baby kicked his legs, seemingly in agreement. Ned chuckled, rocking him gently. The connection in the Force was bright and pure, a new star burning in the morning light. It was hard to believe that this small, fragile thing was the center of so much death and prophecy. Right now, he was just a baby who needed his uncle. Lyanna watched them, her eyes shining. "You're good with him." "I think I am a natural," Ned said, handing the baby back to her as John began to fuss. He watched as Lyanna settled John against her chest. The domestic peace was beautiful, but fragile. Ned knew it couldn't last. The world outside was still waiting. "We need a plan," Ned said softly, his tone shifting from uncle back to lord. Lyanna looked up, covering John with the sheet. "A plan? For Robert?" Ned said. The name hung in the air like a storm cloud. "We can't just ride into King's Landing. If he sees you, if he sees the boy, he will kill him," Lyanna whispered. "And he will try to marry me. I won't let him do that, but I don't want to continue bloodshed." Ned agreed. "He thinks this was a kidnapping. He thinks you are waiting to be rescued so you can become his queen. If you return to the capital alive, he will bind you to him. And he will look at John and see rigor." Ned leaned forward, his grey eyes serious. "You have to die, Lyanna flinched. "What?" "To the world," Ned clarified quickly. "To Robert. To the realm." Lyanna Stark died in the Tower of Joy. She died of a fever, clutching a bed of blood and roses. He reached out and took her hand. "If you are dead, Robert mourns. He builds statues. He cries. And then, he moves on. He marries Cersei Lannister or someone else. He stops hunting. And you get to go home. Lyanna processed this. I go home? As a ghost? As a widow, Ned improvised. Or a distant cousin? Or we just keep you in Winterfell? The north is vast, Lya. We can hide you at Greywater Watch with Howland for a time, or in the Wolf's Wood. But if we want Jon to be safe, no one can ever know that Rhaegar's lover survived. Lyanna looked down at her son. She traced the curve of his ear. It means I can never be Lady Stark, she said. I can never claim my name outside of our walls. It means you get to raise your son, Ned countered. Is the name worth more than his life?